Three, two, one. Recording episode 416. And I got the windows open, and my next door neighbors are like little kids, so I gotta close those because nothing about this podcast is appropriate for them. So David, start monologuing. Hold it down.
Right. Especially because, now we're going to be going to alt media exclusives and whatnot with the YouTube suspension. And that means that I can run my mouth and say a bunch of things that I normally wouldn't out of courtesy of not wanting to be the one to get Tommy's podcast canceled. He's a grown man. He can make the decision when he wants to get canceled. But seeing as we're already canceled, yeah, apparently we're going to be talking about that. One of my favorite things that we can now talk about is how just this morning, the CDC and the FDA started pushing toxic anti-vaccination conspiracy theories, trying to kill grandma about the Johnson and Johnson vaccine.
Gotta love it.
And
we've always been at war with Eurasia.
And now we are more than free to talk about how anyone that supports the World Health Organization and by proxy the Communist Chinese Party are enabling the most murderous regime in history, and they should probably hang at the neck until dead.
Fuck yeah. I mean, we didn't cross the Rubicon. They threw us over. They threw us into the Rubicon, and they threw us into the Rubicon, and then they put up spikes on their side of the river. And so we just had to swim to the other side. We technically, yes, we crossed it, but we were thrown in.
Yeah.
We were trying to play their game. We legitimately were trying.
Yeah, we didn't start a biological weapons campaign or anything like that.
I was talking about
down the world economy.
I was talking about YouTube. I was talking about YouTube, not the Chi-Coms in Wuhan. I was talking about getting banned, but that too.
I'm excited to talk about all of them because they're all on the same side of history from my perspective at this point, and I'm really excited about the fact that we don't have to worry about contradicting the World Health Organization guidelines anymore.
It's so for everyone that has no idea what we're talking about, this is episode 416. Episode 289 got taken down for promoting violence. I was up there with Joe Tedai and Dale Comstock, just saying that you should defend your property if rioters come to burn it down with your kids inside. That was controversial. Episode 291 got me my second strike with oh fuck, what's his face? The Rooftop Korean. And that got taken down because he was walking around LA posting videos of how there were restaurants that were not following the mask mandate and just paying the fine, and they were doing well. That got taken down for spreading, I think, hateful speech somehow. I didn't know. Episode 370 got taken down for having on Claire Lopez, 20-year veteran of the CIA, talking about CCP fingerprints all over the stolen election on November 3rd, which we can now talk about. That got me suspended for a week. I tried to play their game. I came back, and I had a strong month. And then they most recently banned me this past Friday for episode 411 with Dr. Roger Hodkinson, a renowned pathologist MD from Cambridge, who, mind you, said he doesn't think COVID's a bioweapon. He doesn't think there's a vaccine conspiracy, and in a year, he'll probably get it. He said he thinks it's reckless to jump in this quickly, and he doesn't think lockdowns work. That's all he said. It wasn't anti-vaxxer, and it wasn't even bioweapon shit. He said he thinks it's just a cold.
Yeah.
And we got suspended for that. So now I'm off for 2 weeks. If I have one more suspension, I'm permabanned. So what I'm going to do now is every episode, I'm still off for another 10 days, is I'm just going to upload it the first 10 seconds of the episode. So you can find us on Rumble, BitChute, and Spotify. But I'm just not going to – I have 4,000 subscribers there. I've spent a lot of money on paid promotions there. I'm not going to nuke it in some patriotic virtue signal. It's just there's just going to be 10-second clips for every video. So for everyone wondering what we're talking about, that's it.
Yeah, now it's just a notification system that you can use to,
exactly what it is.
Remind everyone to be checking out the other platforms. It's incredibly exciting, to see that level of censorship applied to something so mild, because I watched that and the doctor was very mild. He didn't say anything wild. And then I go back and I rewatched the last episode that you and I did, because I was sitting there in the back of my head. I'm like, I know we said things that are far worse. And I'm going through the previous one we did, and I get to the part where we're basically talking about how to maximize the amount of casualties hijacking a plane. That's okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's perfectly fine. But
Oh yeah,
lockdown's bad. No,
not having on Will Ely, a retired EOD specialist from the Secret Service, telling my listeners what ingredients to buy for bombs. A week later, I had on a guy from the ATF. Coincidence? I don't know. You decide. That might be my handler, Vince Shefflu. But I mean, dude, it's. But then even this conversation we're having now, saying, "Oh, we said worse stuff than Hodgkinson." Even then, we're playing their game. We didn't say worse stuff. We didn't. We didn't dox people. We didn't talk about or show child pornography, and we didn't expose nudity ourselves. We didn't do anything. So even the idea of, well, maybe I think we said worse stuff before. No, we got to stop it here. We didn't say worse stuff. There is no worse stuff. There's free speech. Yes, I get it. It's a private company. They're dodging around Section 230. I understand it's a private company. Keep your libertarian dick in your pants. I understand. The point stands is you got to have open discussion. And I hate to say I told you so because I legitimately don't want to see anyone hurt. I have family members, immediate family members who have taken the vaccine. All right. I'm not wishing this on anyone. That being said, getting banned on Friday for having a doctor saying that the vaccines have inadverse and unstudied side effects, and 4 days later having them take the J&J vaccine off the market a month after they removed AstraZeneca from 13 nations in Europe. I told you so.
Sorry, I mean, I
don't take pleasure, but
I don't hate the idea of vaccines. I think if we can make a good vaccine, that's a great idea. But maybe rushing certain things isn't the best idea. And we're starting to see the effects of that right now come out, and it's not good. It's really not good when every mouthpiece that's supposed to be authoritative public health services is just spouting the lines of the Chinese Communist Party. It's like, I'm sorry, we're in the middle of a war with these people. I know it's not exciting because we're not sinking carrier groups or dropping bombs over it, but if we haven't established what unrestricted warfare is yet and how we're already in it, if we're still not willing to admit that that's the point where we're at, well,
where we're at.
It's where we're at. Let's stop assuming that those people are incompetent buffoons, and let's start thinking maybe they're enemy combatants. That's where I look at it.
It's honestly, in the last week or so, I picked up these. David, keep talking. I picked up these.
Oh hell yeah!
I picked up these hard drives, and I think this is it. So with my my stimmy check, I decided that seeing as how fiat money is meaningless now, I wanted to buy something real, It's motherfucker. So this is just one of them, but I got 6 of them in total. I've already added 4 of them to the NORAD vault. Where's my knife? But it's a hard drive from a company called ADATA, ADATA, and
You're gonna need the trauma shears for that one.
There we go. Jesus. This is the 5th one. Then there's another one. So it's a 5 terabyte hard drive. I have 4 of them right now in my NORAD vault, which for anyone listening is a waterproof, fireproof safe with some EMP shielding in it. This is a 5 terabyte hard drive. Nothing special in terms of storage, but you can drop it 10 feet on concrete. You can submerge it in 6 feet of water for 2 hours. Most importantly, it's got an aluminum shell around it. It weighs about 3 pounds, this hard drive. And it can withstand 3 tons of downward pressure. So
that's impressive.
It is. They're absurdly over the top for one hard drive. But, I decided we're in unrestricted warfare, and I need to do my part. And what did Ted-I say? As long as you're not actively engaging the enemy, and as long as you're not engaging the enemy, and as long as you're not sleeping or eating, if you're back at base, you should always be reinforcing your structures, even if you're just adding another sandbag or one more spotlight or just checking the razor wire. I got a 1400 stimmy check. I'm reinforcing NORAD.
As a 40K fan, I say you got to be like a son of Rogel Dorn, and you got to fortify the position at all times.
I am fortifying that. It wasn't enough to have those hard drives. I need this motherfucker. When you pick it up, it's sharp. It's heavy. You could absolutely beat someone to death with this.
And that's what we need. We need hard drives and computer equipment to double as weapons because, just to pull the libertarian thing out of the pants again for a second there, I'm going to completely disagree. I'm going to say that most of the companies we are fighting are not private companies because what is the definition of fascism? When the state and companies start working together as one, we're no longer talking about private companies. We're no longer talking about that. We're talking about the Fourth Reich, and we're talking about fascism.
We are, but I just feel it's for my own hypocritical I can't be free speech and pro private company on everything and then turn and say I do agree with you, but it's for my own. I don't want to get caught in my own
Yeah.
circle of lies. I have to own up and say it is a private company. But so that we now have that. That isn't. We put that inside a Faraday bag. The Faraday bag inside a fireproof bag, inside a second fireproof bag, inside of a Faraday bag, dry bag, Faraday bag, dry bag, safe. We're not playing this game. This is, for better or worse, this is going to be the only data that exists in 10,000 years.
Right. And that's the important thing, man. Can you imagine what's going to happen whenever, because eventually people are going to be trying to understand how people thought in this period of time. And when that serious subject comes up, are they going to be looking for what was polished on YouTube, or are they going to be watching that like we watch 1950s propaganda for fun, just like, no, you're going to be looking for like, where were the guys that were talking about the most unrestricted shit out there?
Yeah,
And
you're not going to be looking for that polished, like, it's 1950s America. You go and work for GM and you come home and your wife has cornbread ready if she
the
doesn't
camps
want
in Xinjiang are great. These new cotton products are absolutely fantastic.
Dinner's hot if she knows what's good for her. If she doesn't want another shiner. And it's just like, you don't need seatbelts. Those are for communists. Which is great. But at the same time, you're right. I want this stuff. And at the very least, this is what will exist. And I hope, I'm friends with Warren Esch Peter. He's been on here a couple times. He's in charge of MemeSat. It's a little CubeSat that they're shooting up into orbit. And they've,
that's
yeah. It's just for shooting memes back.
So like the what was it, the golden record that they put a bunch of music on and now it's gonna be memes. That's pretty cool.
This is it's pinned at the top of SpaceX Master Race, and it's been pinned there for like a year. No, seriously, he worked for JPL and then he quit his job at a defense contractor to just focus on MemeSat. He's got like he won a grant from, I think, the Air Force, and there's a whole website about it. It's a little tiny CubeSat, and they're gonna launch it up on. It's gonna like hitch a ride on some like Ares rocket or something, and you're gonna be able to go to like its Twitter, and you're gonna be able to like request a meme, and it will beam a meme from space. And I've told them, I was like, I hope you know how quickly this is just gonna turn into like the N-word and like goatsy.
Yeah, and to be fair, but we want that though. I mean,
But
what
freedom.
if there are alien species out there? We need to be engaging in mimetic warfare against those Draco lizards from the system Sirius or whatever.
100%, because they got to know that we don't just have thermonuclear weapons. We also have the dankest memes.
Exactly.
We evolve faster than our viruses. And
we will laugh our asses off while everything blows up around us.
It's like that. The coffin meme.
Yes.
It's like there's some great quote there. It's like, man, it was like, what I love about this pandemic is that I've learned is like my generation is with me, because there could be an asteroid coming to Earth, and instead of finding cover, you're just gonna see memes, and it's like the coffin meme, and they're all holding Earth, and it's like dun dun dun, just like that's what it's gonna be. But I hope what I'll do is, that's probably far too heavy. What I'll do is I'll put it on a micro SD card, maybe wrap it in copper. And I want to see if I can shoot it up on Warren's MemeSat, just so we have an orbital copy of the podcast.
How do things get better than that? I mean, you've made it to the top when your podcast is in orbit.
They don't get better than that. But it's man, there's something exceptionally, yeah, it's freeing. I'm glad I got suspended. It's freeing. We can talk about whatever we want, and it's especially great because all Dr. Hodgkinson and I talked about was the need for discussion. He said, he was like, if the vaccine ends up working, he goes, I'll be the first to like cheer from the rooftops. And then I said, I was like, I brought up the analogy to what's going on now with like 1933 Germany, how it starts slowly and it just, doesn't happen overnight. It takes 15 years, but it goes from
first the Jews are drinking with the camp guards.
It starts with, it's just some work camps. You're only there for 72 hours to it finishes to where you can go to the museums and look at the piles of shoes. It happens really quickly. And well, not really. I mean, but that took 12 years, but it doesn't happen overnight is what I mean. And so what I was saying with Dr. Hodgkinson is I'd rather speak up now at the risk of sounding goofy, at the risk of sounding like a liberal during Trump and being like, he's a Nazi. And you look back and you're like, not really. I would rather people look back in 5 years and be like, dude, Tommy, you were freaking out. Maybe YouTube does a 180 and it's just like, oh man, Tommy, you were really clutching your pearls. I'd rather do that.
Mhm.
I'd rather be like an Al Gore. The icebergs are going to be gone by 2005. I'd rather be that guy than something happen and look back and being like, man, I towed the line. I just kept saying what they wanted. You know, I want to be able to die. I want to be able to die, one day and look back and be like, you know, maybe it didn't work. Maybe the globalists do take over and we descend into some techno 1984 fascism state and we all die and it's the end of history. Maybe not. But I have to know that, like, not even for kids, not for grandkids, I have to know that, like, I did what I could with what I had at the time. You know,
Exactly.
maybe you're a billionaire in the 40s and what you can do is, help Uncle Sam build tanks. Maybe you're an enlisted man and what you can do is you carry the fucking belt for the machine gun. Do what you can with what you have. And I have to do that. And staying on YouTube and playing by their rules, it's Tim Kennedy posted do you know who Tim Kennedy is?
Sounds very familiar, but there's a lot
I
of
think he was
Kennedys floating around in my
yeah,
head.
I think he was a Green Beret. I think he was a Green Beret.
That sounds familiar. I
He's
think I
been
know
on
who you're
Rogan
talking
a
about now.
lot.
Yeah,
I mean,
I know who you're talking about
he
now.
looks like he's kind of that doesn't look like Jocko, but he's like another version of Jocko. And he posted a thing on Instagram the other day, and it was like warning against gun control, and he like named just in like the 20th century, like the top 10 genocides and how they all started with like the dates and the bills that began with gun confiscation, whether it's the Soviet Union, whether it's Red China, whether it's Germany, whatever. He posted all of them and just said, we need to learn from history. That's it. His post got flagged by fact checkers, and so being Tim Kennedy, he just screenshotted it and posted that. And it's fact checkers. The relation between gun confiscation and authoritarian regime genocide, mostly false.
Mostly false. I like
And
that.
and you know what? That's the war we're playing now. And we just have to do what we have to do and just there has to be open discussion. Again, I would rather be wrong. I'd rather look like a David Icke and people be like, Tommy, you were so wrong. I'd rather be that goofball than be the German that's like, they shouldn't have, they shouldn't have been mean to the government. I'd rather be in this
Yeah, at least
position.
then, if everything goes back to normal, yeah, we were a little bit crazy, but we can all go back to laughing about it. But right now, like you look at the new ATF director, the eunuch, the murdering eunuch from Waco, like you
Yeah.
hear this guy's voice, right? Like I'm pretty sure they cut his nuts off so that he could stay in a certain octave for like a choir.
He cut his
But
own nuts off.
very much so. And talk about the list of people that I would consider like enemy uniformed combatants that should like hang from the neck until dead. Anyone that declares war on the Constitution of the United States and has like photos of them like standing next to their freaking body count of how they actually waged that war. I'm sorry, but fuck them. Like fuck them to death.
Dude, that picture of him like standing in the rubble of Waco and he's posing for a picture like you'd
Such a
pose.
badass, right?
Yeah,
Such a
like
badass.
it's like posing for a picture with a trophy kill, and it's that you shot from like a helicopter directly above it. You shot like a sedated elephant with a 50 cal from point blank. Like, yeah, real great kill, man. He's standing there on the rubble, and it's just like, dude,
We got him.
yeah. And did you? I don't know. Yeah, we got him. And did you see like there's a? I don't know if you saw, but his justification. I think he said it in the last like 96 hours.
Yes.
Is he said the reason why we had to eventually, we had to go in and engage in Waco is because I didn't know this. This is new to me. I don't know if you knew this, David, but the Branch Davidians actually shot down 2 FBI helicopters with a mounted 50.
I heard Brian Williams from what was it, NBC, was he was in one of the helicopters that went down.
But I'm not kidding. That's what he said the other day.
Yeah, with all those fully automatic weapons they found on site.
I mean, dude, it's like what Bill Hicks said. He's like, I've seen the video. He's like, this isn't like 92 or 93 or whenever the fuck when did Bill Hicks die? Late 90s?
Fuck.
When was Waco?
No, I want to say that was, Waco was a little bit later in the night. What was that, like 98 or something like that? I think Bill Hicks died a little bit sooner than that.
Well, no, because
Really?
one of Bill Hicks' bits, he's talking about Waco.
Okay, well then, damn. All right, my time scale's off.
Yeah, no,
But
no. I always thought Hicks died in '93, but I think Waco was after '93.
yeah, I want to say Waco was a little bit later in the 90s. But maybe Bill Hicks is alive. Maybe that came out like afterwards, like a Tupac thing.
Maybe. No, let's. One was Waco. I thought it was '93. Do you have any guesses before I check?
I'm going to say 95 to 97. That's where I think it is, somewhere in there.
Let's see, wait, is there? There's not even. If you search for Waco, it actually comes up with the. No, I mean
the Netflix film or something.
Yeah, no, it comes up with just the town. No, goddamn, Google, you know what I want. You know exactly what I want. Waco. Oh, it's a town in Texas, and it has a great population. It was
nothing ever. I want
the slaughter of the kids with the gas. All right, Waco siege, February 28th, 1993.
Okay, you're right. Yeah.
Huh. Bill Hicks must have to April 19th.
I'm thinking Timothy McVeigh.
Yeah, he was later. Yeah.
Yeah.
When did Bill Hicks die? So Bill Hicks.
Well, he's not dead. I mean,
fuck you. February 26th, 1994. Okay, so he was okay.
Right there, yeah.
What I love about the day Bill Hicks was born, December 16th, is the day I took shrooms for the first time, which I thought was poetic. And what I also didn't know is when I discovered Bill Hicks while living in the frat house at Valdosta State University. Bill Hicks was born in Valdosta. And
that's some weird stuff right there.
I feel he died just outside Little Rock, Arkansas. I lived in Little Rock, Arkansas, or I lived in just outside Little Rock, Arkansas when I was age 5 to 9. I feel Hicks is coursing through my veins, or just delusions of grandeur. It's one or the other.
Hey, motivation is motivation. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Take the placebo effect.
Take it. It's like what Sam Hyde said. Sam Hyde is like,
yep.
He's like, you just got to believe in yourself. Iffy example, 19 guys barely spoke a lick of English, couple box cutters. They believed in themselves, and look what they did.
Exactly. One of my favorite memes of the Nike era where they said, like, just do it. And it's like I don't know, somewhere
Muhammad
in the Middle East. It's some dude holding like an RPG 7 and he's got the kicks on and he's running out and it's like, Nike, just do it.
Muhammad Atta. They took the Kaepernick one. If you don't stand for anything, no, if you kneel for no, it's like if you don't live for anything, you'll, I don't know, if you won't.
I remember the image, but you know how they are when they try to astroturf something that never really sticks in the head.
I think it's stand for anything, even if you lose everything or whatever. Yeah. Stand for something.
That's it.
There's a picture of that, and it's like the Nike swoosh, and there's just Muhammad Atta's face. It's like Tim Dillon. Tim Dillon's like, everyone has a point. They have at least one point that you'd agree with, and he's like, that's what I don't like about. He's like, even Hitler loved his dog. And you could at least find common ground with that. He goes, if you're on the plane and Atta's piloting that thing in the North Tower, if you ran up there and said, Muhammad, why are you doing this? And he'd say, come into the back. And you go into the back and he'd talk to you and he'd give you a short history about imperialism and how we're raping their land. And you go, God damn it, Muhammad, you have a point.
That's the thing. Like, one of the scariest things in the world is, when the war of terror broke out, from average person's mindset is all uneducated goat fuckers, and the big thing is you forget that a lot of these Middle Eastern nobility go to like Oxford and they're trained like, British royalty and shit.
Yeah.
And, they think the same way. And if you actually go and you find, some old Osama bin Laden stuff and you actually listen to what he's saying, listen, I'm not saying the man was right about everything, but the man had some points. Okay. He didn't just pop off for no reason, right? There's a lot of policy decisions that the United States made to antagonize that group.
I think it's like Ahmadinejad or one of the Middle Eastern.
Ahmadinejad, yeah.
It might have been him. It might have been someone else. But Tim Dillon and Ray Kump this is like a year ago. They're on Patreon and they're like, how's Alex Jones banned, but like these Shahs saying death to America, death to Israel, how come they're not banned yet? And they're like, let's go to Ahmadinejad. Who's the head of Iran? Who's Iran?
Well, I'm not sure. Well, Ayatollah Khomeini is the guy.
No, there's one name. There's one name I keep.
Ahmadinejad was the PM for a very long time.
Well, then it wasn't him. I think it was Assad. Anyway,
it's Syria, but
they go to one of these guys' Twitter. And they're like, let's see what this motherfucker's saying. And it's like, all right. And they read it and they go, they're like, this war is for blood and oil. And they're like, well, that's not a good one. And they go to his next one. And he's like, the American military industrial complex rapes other lands for the beneficial of their own stuff. Wait a minute. They go, hold on.
So just an example of like what Twitter is okay with, but Alex Jones is banned. Just this morning, I was seeing this. So in Pakistan right now, the TLP, which is kind of their Islamist far right party, they are rioting right now because France, once again, some drawings over a certain prophet. His name might be Muhammad, and so they're rioting because they want the French ambassador expelled from Pakistan. And they basically captured a wounded police officer. And so I'm on Twitter and I'm watching this, and you can see the wounded police officer sitting in the truck. He's completely surrounded and everyone's like partying and yelling and everything. And that's perfectly fine. That 100% is fine for Twitter. Actual political extremist violence going on, capturing a police officer, making little propaganda tapes, of celebrating that they got this police officer. 100% fine. Alex Jones, no.
Yeah. Man, it's overwhelming, but it's very easy to fall into this, like, how does no one else see this censorship? Does no one else see what's going on? But when you remember that they foment consent so that the minority's views become perceived as the majority, and the majority think they're the minority, what you then have to realize is everyone that sees censor, like I think I told you, I sent that. No, I was telling it to someone else. Might have been, I don't know. It doesn't matter. I sent the fact that I was banned for having Roger Hodkinson on. I sent that to several of my liberal friends. And they all kind of said the same thing. They're like, devil's advocate, one private company. I was like, sure. And they're like, maybe they're looking at it as like they don't want to be responsible for people not getting the vaccine. And right now, because their traffic is in the billions, they're just going, fuck it, slap it on there. Just, kind of World War II FDR going, fuck it, put all the Asians in camps. In hindsight, sure, we can pick it apart. But at the time, it's like the world's on fire. Just, you're kind of dictating black and white. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll entertain that idea. Voltaire said, the sign of an intelligent individual is someone who can entertain an idea without necessarily believing it. Okay, we can entertain that idea. But they all, to a T, they all followed up with, but I think that's pretty scary that you got suspended for having on that guy for doing nothing. But that gets me thinking, well, I'm checking in person on texts, as you so perfectly said, outside the panopticon. And my liberal friends are saying that's not good. But you don't see that on social media. And which makes me start to kind of realize they're going to censor stuff on social media. They're also going to censor people bringing up censorship. So you have to remember, don't believe what they're saying. Everyone that's watching this going, this censorship's getting out of control. I would go so far as to say 95% of people agree with you, but they are manipulating it so you think, why is everyone else okay with it? Everyone else is not okay with it.
It goes back to the black box, and never get fooled into thinking that your opposition is unified and 100% effective. Yes. Here's the thing. Every time that we can get all these censors and specifically to politically radical individuals that get censor happy, when we see them playing a game of whack-a-mole, it's because they're reactive and they're losing control. So that's actually a good thing for us. Yes. And the question we should be asking is how to get them popping off onto other people and how to get them popping off onto moderates. I mean, not, to get into the most, the two-faced kind of psychological aspect of that, if we can, nitpick and we find what little arguments are going to really trigger the censor happy people, and we can turn them onto the mainstream people that have, like, the really big people that haven't been censored, and put that pressure onto them so that they keep playing that game of whack-a-mole. Well, as they're, just as China likes to erode the sand from other people's islands, we can erode the sand from our island while building up yours on the other platforms. And that's what it's about doing, and keeping them at that, it's about dictating the pace. And if we're keeping them hitting that game of whack-a-mole, constantly being reactionary, they're not even going to have the time to be off platform doing what they have to do, to contain us there. We're already seeing, like, for example, Twitch came out recently, said that they're hiring private investigators to investigate people's off platform activity. Yeah. And
good. Accelerate.
And
it's going to wake up more people.
Is 100% accelerated, and because it's just going to force people to find solutions to this problem.
Yeah, that's exactly what because it doesn't matter if people like me or you or Alex Jones or Milo or whoever scream about censorship. It's okay, whatever. It's again, it's Muhammad Ali. It doesn't matter when a radical Muslim says death to America. You're like, I get it, I get it, I get it. It's when you have some moderate person going, well, what are they saying? And that's when it starts to turn the tide. Is you're right. I had this there's this guy who, I mean, I always like for YouTube I would always pay people to try to like promote videos. I started doing it in the last 6 months or so because I couldn't get a single additional subscriber without paying. That's how fucked it was. And one of the most recent channels I found was just, I won't say it for the sake of his channel, but I was like, he was gonna do, it's like, $10, maybe get 1,000 views. Like, sure, let's, I'm always just toying with different things. Let's see what the return is. And I wanted to have him just push one of my videos. I'm just like, let's see how it, see if I can't get some more subscribers. But then I got suspended, and I was like, hey man, we can't do it. I got suspended. And he was like, fuck. And I was like, well, I guess we can try with Rumble. And he was like, why Rumble? And I was like, I was suspended from YouTube. And he was like, am I gonna get suspended for posting your video? And I was like, I don't think so, but you might. And I was like, I don't know who this person is. And I was like, do the right thing, man. And I think it's just a kid. And he was like, I don't get these entrepreneurial kids. They get views better than anyone. I was like, just do it. I was like, I'll pay you double, $20, real big dick swinging, right? Probably shouldn't use that analogy when talking about children, big dick swinging, but whatever. If I use that, they'll let me stay on Twitter and YouTube.
Right.
But
Change your
yeah,
political party too, and
yeah,
you might
yeah.
get right to the top.
Yeah, identify as a Marxist. They'll fucking, they'll provide me with the pizza parties. But it's so I did this with Rumble and it worked. And he was like, why did it get suspended? So I just sent him the video, and he was like, dude,
That's it.
he goes, that's it. He goes,
That's it. Yeah.
he goes, that's scary. He goes, they're stupid. And I said, don't ever make the mistake of thinking they're stupid. They're maliciously competent. And he was like, thanks, man. So he made the little poll on YouTube, and it's like, go check out this video. Leave like a, so and so sent you. But it wasn't even, he goes, YouTube banned this and they won't let it back. And I was just like, a quick red pill to one guy with a channel with 30,000 like teens or preteens that do these polls. And it's just little things like that. So it doesn't help if I get suspended for having on Dale saying we need to take down, a capital. It's like, yeah, I kind of get why I get banned for that. I get it. It's when I can show people me getting suspended for having on the most milquetoast doctor, Dr. Hodkinson. It wasn't a sexy ban. When people see that I get banned for that, I think that's what helps a lot.
Yeah, that it does help a lot. And also what you're doing is probably the smartest thing on the platform. When you can weaponize we all hear the term weaponized autists on the internet, but both whether it's, learning how to game the algorithm for sake of popularity contests or actually getting into the field of geopolitics, there are always going to be up and coming young nerds. And let me tell you something, if there's something that I really want to know and I'm trying to figure it out and I'm trying to, go through Snapchats or, Snap Map and try to develop some source on the ground or, ask some question somewhere. If I need to outsource some material, the best thing that I can do, Russians call them patriotic troll farms, right? The best thing I can do is find a cadre of say 30 some, teenagers, young adults that are really passionate about geopolitics and just drop something on them and be like, hey man, what do you guys find when you look at this? And if I can get them to start picking that up and go all pull autist or something like that, like 4chan level, guess what? The amount of open source intelligence, return that you get for that is massive. And it's the same way when you're using that to bypass the algorithm. Well, guess what? The algorithm's there to promote you. The algorithm is supposed to be helping you build your channel, build your platform, and grow. So what are you doing? You're going outside that channel now. You're building your own notification system. You're building your own, essentially an algorithm. Essentially, you're building your own base of people that are going out there and influencing. And every one of those, and it's all about finding the leader. For me, because I like to cut things down to as small as possible. I like to identify, who's actually leading a little group, focusing on something here or there. Who's actually, most importantly, who's motivated, like self-determined, self-motivated. That's the most important thing that you got to look for. And if you can give them one video, like you just said, where they go through it and they go, that's nothing. There's no reason for us to be banned. This is nothing. I post spicier memes, all that kind of stuff. I've got memes that would get this banned in a heartbeat, but that's banned. Every time you find some young entrepreneur leader that's motivated go-getter and you bring them a little bit closer to that level, you've not just created one person in that space, you're creating a whole cell that is going to become more motivated.
Yeah.
So, and that's the way to go. That's how we win this.
Yeah. And what has to be understood is like, is this isn't some like conservative. I don't have this agenda of I'm pushing this because I want my viewpoint to win. I don't want censorship to win. If it was a Trump administration in its second term banning talk about vaccines, you bet your fucking ass would be doing the same exact thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because you have to have freedom of speech. And not only that, there's an inherent, you just, some people that are like, or helping out this channel, they don't even give a fuck about the they don't even care about, or they're the opposite, like Roger, the author I have on all the time. He's liberal, but he's here to help
Old
because
school though. He's not an authoritarian.
no,
He's just, he's a liberal. He's an actual
JFK,
liberal.
yeah, he's a Berkeley, like a JFK, like, yeah, actual. He's here because there's always a certain amount of fun that's in the counterculture. And if the politicians, the corporations, and the Hollywood elite are all on your side, you're not the counterculture. The counterculture is when you get kicked the fuck off YouTube. So you got to go to some shitty side channel like Rumble or BitChute, which, hey, they're shitty because the UI isn't great, but hey, I will give them all the credit in the world because they're doing God's work having an alternative platform. They're shitty. I'm going to help build it up so it's better. I think BitChute is a piece of shit, but I also pay them $10 a month without getting anything in return because I want to see them develop into something better.
Exactly.
But you have to find these people that they just don't want to be part of censorship because it's just at the very base level, regardless of your ideology, it's just like it's not chill. Like it's not dope. It's very uncool, bro.
How do we make this simple enough that any up and coming kid wants to get in the fight? Well, go back and play a video game from like 15 years ago, play one that came out recently. And let me tell you, if we win this, one day games can be good again. One day entertainment and media can be good again.
One day you will be able to hire a hooker, pay her, and then chop her head off with a katana so you get your money back, like in Grand Theft Auto 3. You'll be able to. I don't believe that those days are gone forever. I think our best days are ahead of us. I think that dismemberment will come back to Grand Theft Auto. I think Postal 2 has not seen its full glory yet. One day, I believe you'll be able to burn the skin off of your opponents and then urinate on their bodies like you could in 2003. Yeah, I still believe in that future.
I remember
hey, David, keep talking. My allergies are killing me. I got to go get an aspirin. Keep talking.
Go for it. Yeah, I remember a game that came out called a State of Emergency, and this game would be like completely banned over top because it was just about like running in to like a mall or something with just everyone running around, and you just start killing everything. And I remember dismemberment. You could go pick up some dismembered head and beat some other dude to death with it. And not that violence for the sake of violence is cool or anything, but the point is we used to have a culture where if you created something like that, yeah, there were going to be some PC nannies that were going to come around and they, they'd be snooty towards you, but you weren't going to be demonized for it. You weren't going to be told that you can't enjoy that media. You weren't going to be told that, it has to conform to this, that, or the other. And we wouldn't have to tailor scripts or development of a game to fit China. And that's, my biggest gripe with everything is I absolutely hate the Chinese Communist Party. And anytime I see something, a business in general that has to sit there and basically cut all the good stuff from their content or say, hey, we got to make blood green because, red blood's bad. We got to take the skeletons out of World of Warcraft because apparently the human anatomy, the idea of just a skeleton out, I remember going to, I think it was Mosey, a science, museum kind of thing, and seeing basically, a body exhibit. We were actual human corpses. And that's now a very controversial thing because a lot of people believe it came from China and a lot of people believe that those may have been political prisoners. That's probably a fucked up thing now that we think about that. But you could actually go and enjoy whatever the hell you wanted without Chinese influence locking stuff down. Now we live in a world where everyone is okay with, policing your humor, policing your entertainment, policing your media. But, if you bring up the fact that, there is a regime that everyone is in bed with that has killed more people than Hitler and Stalin combined at this point, and they're still running unchecked, I'm sorry, but at a certain point, you gotta hang up your habits and just get into the fight, knowing that one day our habits will be good again. Our entertainment and our fun will be good again. And that's one of the reasons I'm so motivated, is because at a certain point, when games suck to a certain degree and fucking with people on the internet becomes more fun than playing the game, well, guess what? I'm now starting a patriotic troll farm and I'm fucking with people on the internet, because when we look at, organizations like the Lincoln Project and whatnot that popped up,
Those fucking
yeah,
pedophiles.
I remember. Yeah, that was the thing. When that organization first was created,
Those
everyone
cannibals.
jokingly, everyone said, "Hey, look, all the Republican pedophiles just outed themselves." What took them down? It wasn't us beating their arguments. It wasn't us debating their points. It was catfishing operations, honeypot operations, because we knew their vices, we know what they're into, and we know how to destroy them with that. And
Those,
that's the way we go about taking these people down and taking our culture back.
yeah. I've also stopped. I gave in about a week. Thank you very much for monologuing. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
I gave in about a week ago. I finally caved and I took the black pill. And I realized that nothing
It's
that,
not black, it's really dark red.
well, exactly. Well, that's what I now know. But at the time, I finally caved. And I said nothing. I told myself, I was like, that was kind of the basis of my solo rant last week. I was like, nothing's going to change. They're in control. The CCP stole the election. They're now shutting it down. They're dismantling the U.S. military. Soon there are going to be robots, and it's going to be over. And I did that for a couple days, and for a couple days, the high was really good from the pill. I'd be on Reddit, and I'd be like, I'd read like, hey, they're using chain linked fence around churches in Canada. They're banning vaccine information. They banned RFK Jr. from Instagram for posting something about vaccine. And I would just exit out and I would just go back to sleep metaphorically. I'd say, I don't care. It's over. And the high was good for about a day or two. It was a solid drug. And there was no hangover. But I realized like there's no glory in that. And I was like, go out. Well, why wouldn't I fight? Well, because it kind of seems like all is lost. But what about fighting the fight because it's a good fight and not caring if you lose?
Yeah, and if we're not fighting to run the empire, which there's always going to be an empire. This is why I'm a 40K fan. What regardless of what you believe about the government, just due to the military revolution and the industrial complex needed to engage in security competition, there is always going to be an imperium of mankind.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're not fighting our best to lead it, some asshole is. And as we've learned over the past few decades, the assholes that would really like to run it are kind of a bunch of kid fucking communists that want to sell us out to China and murder the Uyghurs and, just keep that old, communist fascist game rolling where, we just systemically destroy not just cultures, but the entire people of anyone that disagrees with them.
Yeah. And it's also what Claire said last week when I was like, is the CCP a superior mechanism? Are they ruthless enough to that maybe, what do you have? A republic, if you can keep it. Are they superior? And I thought what she verbally kind of smacked the shit out of me. She said, absolutely not. A totalitarian system will never be the best system because people will never fight for it because that's what they want. They'll fight for it out of fear. People will always flee to a better system. Even if it comes down to Earth is lost, we're going to Mars and we're building the colony part 2. Then people will always flee. And that kind of jacked me up. And I realized in hindsight, it wasn't a black pill. It was a very dark red pill. Shit does seem pretty bleak right now, but fight the fight for the sake of fighting the fight. I saw someone made a post and it was like December last year. And when it really started to, Supreme Court wasn't going to hear the case. And it was kind of like, is all is lost. And someone was like, they made a post. I think it was on the Donald. It might've been on one of the Q boards, but it was, I'm going to fight the fight. And, maybe I'll die after a CCP invasion, but I would rather die and not live in a communist dominated world because I don't want to be a part of that world. Like, what do you get? Like, if it's like what I just said like earlier about like it's coming out that vaccines are causing blood clots. Like, I don't get any "I told you so" out of it, because what if my fucking mom dies? Ha! I
Yeah.
told you so. Like,
Yeah.
there's
You
nothing
know,
great about that.
all the "I told you so's" I want to hear and all that kind of stuff. When
It's
I'm
ego.
dead, and when I'm dead and I'm looking at the scoreboard at where I'm at in the fight, and I'm going and I'm like high fiving Bismarck and all those dudes and stuff, and and I'm sure he's at like the king of the "I told you so" club, in the afterlife, and I'd love to hang out with those guys. That
McCarthy has first placed.
vindicate. Well, you know what? He's so vindicated at this
He
point.
is
He's
at
so
he's
vindicated.
all-time high score.
Like someone dig him up. We need that man
Just
back.
below him is Yuri, but McCarthy is at the top.
You
Maybe
know
Tom,
it.
maybe Andrew Jackson with the Banks.
You know, that's one of those things you can never forget about the balls. The
Yeah,
straight balls he had.
you are a pit of vipers, and I intend to rout you out, and by the power of God, I will rout you out.
Resistance to tyranny is obedience to God.
What an
Yes.
animal. Those are the guys we need, man. They had no like idea of like, I'm gonna survive and I'm gonna live forever and see freedom win. No, these were guys that were like, hold my wooden teeth and ale. I'm gonna die fighting this. Maybe I'll win, maybe I won't, but I will not live on the same battlefield as these motherfuckers.
Yeah. At the end of the day, where do you want to be on the scoreboard?
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
It's what David Goggins said about God. Is he goes, I think that there is a God, he, her, whatever. He goes, and it has a plan for you. And most people get to heaven afterwards and they realize that, God loves you just the same, but he shows you that you could have been more. So Goggins is saying, he goes, 10 years ago I was overweight. I always felt bad for myself because my dad beat me and I grew up poor. And he goes, and I go to heaven and well, now everyone knows Goggins is in incredible shape. He's like the most fit guy in the world. He was a Navy SEAL. He was a Ranger. He was actually trying out for Delta selection, but was forced to stop because they found a physical hole in his heart.
Oof.
He's a machine. But he's saying this. He goes, and I die. Maybe he was a what was it? He's a fucking pesticide guy, exterminator. He goes, I go to heaven. And he goes, and I'm fat, I'm 300 pounds, and I'm an exterminator. And he goes, I paid my taxes. I was a good person. And God goes, hey, I love you just the same. But I just want to show you, you could have been 170 pounds, ran ultra marathons, been a Navy SEAL and a Ranger, and almost get into Delta. I love you just the same, but that's what you could have been. And you go, oh, well, he goes, but it's heaven, so you don't feel any regret. He just goes, next time. He goes, what I want to do is I want to get to heaven. And I want God to go, you were supposed to be a Ranger, Delta, Navy SEAL, but I didn't have the rest of this shit. You ran ultra marathons? He goes, I want God to go, I did. He goes, I want God to go, quote, I know everything and I see everything. And I didn't fucking see that coming.
How did you pull that one? Right?
He goes, I want God to look at me and smile and go, I did not see that coming. And to me, that's what I always think about is when I die, either there's nothingness or there's an afterlife, whatever. I don't give a shit. I want to get there and I want the creator to be like, I did not see the EMP vault. Touche.
Right.
I didn't know that the EMP vault would get lodged out of place by an asteroid and fly into the Andromeda system.
This is why I always say, remember that God has a sense of humor and do what makes for the better story.
Exactly.
Not for the sake of making it for the better story, but just because if he finds it funny enough, he'll help you out.
Exactly. Or Elon Musk said the most entertaining outcome is the most probable.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that, and it's and to any 3-letter agencies that are watching, which I can't divulge that right now, but I know for a fact they are. Maybe in 10 years I'll be able to tell you, but I know for a fact they are, and that's a cliffhanger for 2030.
That's one of the reasons I'm so happy to come on here and say that I think the majority of the intelligence community, not the old school guys, I see a lot of the old school guys, they're great people, but the guys that run it now, I think that they're a bunch of welfare queens that are probably subhuman parasitic scum. And I just like to, say that for my own,
for the record,
gets that off the chest, it makes me feel a lot better because, some of us are actually over here like doing work study in China, and some of these fuckers are just like playing little fuck games. And
make sure you kick down the door of the guy that, is exercising his Second Amendment right. That being said, I also know for a fact that there are some legit patriotic individuals fighting for what's right in a system that has kind of become wrong. But
Mhm.
the point is for anyone listening, this is not me saying go grab a gun and go start fighting, because I will only ever be able to advise something. It's kind of like Curtis LeMay. Curtis LeMay never sent the head of Strategic Air Command, Secretary of the Air Force under Kennedy, was a bombardier or bomb pilot in World War II, led the massive air campaign against Japan. He would never send his men on a formation or a mission that he himself was not in the lead plane
Mhm.
on. And I've never served in the military, so I can't. It's not just one like illegal. I don't want the SWAT team kicking down my door because I'm saying, "Hey, everyone, go burn down this senator's house." I also have never served, so I don't feel that I have any sort of credence or ability to say, "Go fight the revolution." What I can say as a podcaster and a graphic designer and a shitlord is to fight the fight on your terms. I can fight
Mhm.
the fight with dope hoodies that help pay for better podcast equipment, that help me have guests on, that help me scream about COVID vaccines and the CCP and Uyghur Muslims. That is my fight.
Mhm.
So just for the record, for any of those douchebags listening, that's what I'm doing. This is my unconventional warfare. Is a cherub with
Mhm.
face tattoos. But it's, by the way, little merch shameless plug. Have you gotten your Pharaoh hoodie yet?
No, I haven't.
What?
I'm waiting for another shipment of my favorite beverage too, and nothing's been showing up. But it's also been storming for the last
Okay.
couple days there. But
Okay. It's weird because some people get them in like a week, some people get them in a month. I want to make sure you're not getting fucked. So please let me know because
yeah,
I
I'll
re
let you know.
yeah.
I
Okay. Good.
Right
Good.
now I think it's just in general. I'm getting
Okay.
some delays and
Some of
period.
them, yeah, some of them took a long time to get to me. I just want to make sure you don't get fucked. I want to make sure everyone gets their stuff. Because for everyone listening, Um, fuck, what was I gonna say? It's like what Tim Dillon said. He's like, if you want a podcast that he goes, people often ask me, why do I talk about satanic, cannibalistic pedophiles on my podcast? He goes, because no one else is talking about it. He goes,
Yeah.
everyone else is talking about racism and woke culture. They don't bring anything unique to the table. If you want something unique, come to me. And my logic is this: I'm not bringing you a unique hoodie. It's a hoodie. It's a good hoodie. It's a fucking hoodie. Okay? It's a hoodie. This isn't going to change your life. What I can bring is the most unique designs you've ever fucking seen. Look at these sweatpants. You know what these sweatpants are?
Yeah,
These are
I've
from
seen
a
those.
Yeah, these are from a Wilson cloud chamber, the early 1920s particle accelerators where they'd vaporize oil and then they'd let neutrinos punch through them and they track the changes. I made sweatpants out of that. Are they better than sweatpants than anything else? They're comfy. They're fucking sweatpants. What I do have are the most dope original designs that no one else has. So I'm not going to say buy the merch and it just says TPC podcast. No, it's going to be Marilyn Monroe getting fucked by a horse. That's what the podcast merch is about. So if you like this podcast, if you like
Playing a
what it stands,
Catherine of Russia, if I remember
yeah,
correctly.
if you like this podcast and you want to support it, don't fucking go to Patreon. Don't give me direct cash because that's some bullshit. You need to get something out of it. Because if I just say, "Hey, Venmo me some money, support the cast," you
When
don't
are
know
you
if.
doing Hawaiians, by the way?
Oh, I'll have to see if
Do
they
you
have.
have a Hawaiian design?
I have designs and I just superimpose them onto like any gear, so I can go on and try to find some Hawaiian shirts. I don't know why not.
I mean,
I don't know
that's
why the
that's
fuck not.
that's how I like to roll, man. I'm all about the
Well, then we'll
Hawaiian man around
fucking
here. It's hot as hell.
we'll dabble into some Hawaiians.
But to get back onto what you were
Yeah,
saying,
yeah, yeah.
I did talk a little bit of crap about the intelligence community, but not to bash them too much because at the end of the day, we need those institutions back. At the end of the day,
They are good
when
institutions.
yeah, at the end of the day, we're still up against China. And when we deal with the traders, which has to happen, there's no other way about that. We can't go, we can't turn and face an adversary when we know that there's a firing line behind us. Those got to go. Otherwise, there are just going to be a lot of people that are never going to trust the intelligence community. There are going to be a lot of people that should be working with the intelligence community, that should be, coming together and saying, hey, how can we beat authoritarianism? How can we beat China? How can we beat all the censorship and whatnot? And right now, from the perspective of the average person, this is why we're losing the culture war and the propaganda front. When there's people like me that are more likely to trust someone from the Sinaloa cartel than freaking intelligence community, we have a serious fucking problem. And that
Yeah.
needs to be addressed. And there's no way to go about that while we're still playing tiptoe around and letting a bunch of traders run our establishment.
It's kind of like that shirt Ted I was wearing. A gun is not a weapon, it's a tool. I am the
Mm-hmm.
weapon. the intelligence agencies are not a weapon, just like guns aren't inherently bad. I don't
It's
think that.
people.
Yeah, hot take. I don't think the CIA is necessarily bad. I think bad things can happen. I think guns are good. You can kill Nazis with guns. You can also go to Sandy Hook and shoot a bunch of 6-year-olds in the face. I think intelligence agencies are tools. I don't think they're bad. I don't think we should get rid of them.
Yeah. The question is whether or not what we would consider a Constitution loving patriot has to keep their head down in that community.
And probably
if you have to, yeah, if you are a Constitution loving person and you have to keep your head down in that community,
Godspeed, brother.
Godspeed, you're behind
sister.
Enemy lines. God bless you, or sister. And in that case, I don't have the best advice for you. We're doing the best we can outside the system, but
I don't have any advice for you. Please give me advice.
Please give us advice. How can we help you? Because at the end of the day, I'll never be able to go back to focusing on China abroad the way I used to, while I have to worry about, some Waco murderer deciding to, let's start a campaign and let's start doing Wacos across America because we're declaring war on the Constitution, which, if I remember correctly, everyone kind of swore an oath to defend. And if I remember even more correctly, during the Trump administration, there was a strange period where everyone was asked to take the oath again at a little strange point in time there.
Really? During the Trump administration?
During the Trump administration,
I did not know that.
I forget the exact date of it, but there was a moment where basically everyone had to re-up on the oath.
I remember there was some weird shit where during his inauguration, the military came and stood behind him for 10 seconds, and everyone was like, "That's a sign." I don't know what it was.
Everyone goes on about that. I don't look into it that way.
Do you need the weaponized autism to break that down?
I
say that as a crazy weird person. I'm not hating on you autists. I'm one of you.
Yeah, for me, I just remember, talking to a bunch of dudes, and we were at the time, it was the big controversy that was going on is that the Russians were turning our GPS systems on and off. It was kind of like just flicking it on and off just to let us know that they could do it. And that was the kind of thing that was going on. And I just remember talking to, some naval contractor type folks about it. And it was, one of them just, mentioned kind of offhand, yeah, it was really weird. We all had to retake the oath today. It was, it's just not a scheduled thing. So, and that was one of those things that, that stood out to me and, just made me think, hey, at least we're prodding about this. But now we're back to the point where, hey, we have a Politburo doing a Stalinist purge. And, back to the situation, and what you're saying, obviously there are people far more qualified to rise up and fight a revolution than us. That's why I'm never going to straight up advocate, hey, let's, grab a battle rifle and go. But at the end of the day, as long as we're supposed to be having people take those oaths and we're advocating a policy that is directly waging war on the Constitution, there is no other solution. There is no other direction that this is going to go but Los Pepes comes to America.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a bloodbath that no one wants to see.
Yeah. Again, for me, it's not even some moral standpoint that I'm there can't be war.
Yeah, for me, it's purely strategic. We can't fight the Chinese if our backyard isn't secure.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's kind of again, for me, it's I'm a biology major. I took the MCAT and the PCAT. I can give people advice on how I got into medical school and how I studied for those things. I have no idea what it's like to get into law school or nursing school or business. So it's I don't give advice on that. I can give advice on how to start a podcast. I can give advice on, I can't tell you how to fucking do X, Y, and Z. So for me, it's I try to just stay in my lane. So people that do create content, whether it's dope graphic designs or whether it's hoodies or podcasts, that's what I try to advocate on. Do the right thing and push for awareness on that. Oh, and to circle back on the reason why people have asked, why don't I do a bigger presence on Patreon? I don't like the idea of you giving me money and not getting anything in return. Even if you get an episode in return, to me, that's still fucking you. It's kind of like defense contractors. If they order 5,000 fighter jets and we buy them all and it turns out we didn't need them, at least we still have 5,000 fighter jets that we can use at a future date. I like to sell merch. So even if you don't like the podcast, even if I sell out, even if I get banned or whatever, at least you still have a hoodie. To me, I think that's the only fair trade-off. You buy a hoodie, I get some profit. Profit goes into better cameras, better Ethernet, better whatever, more books so I can contact more authors. But that's why I do merch, is because I want you to get something in return. So even if you hate me, you still have a dope piece of merch. Enough of
Yeah.
that plug. What you were saying about people behind us, it makes me think of I think it's Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. Because I'm retarded, I play games like 10 years after they come out. But I love the survival mode on those, where it's just waves of enemies and they get better and better and better. And you can't win. You just get to the next round. Eventually you die. Like any game that just has waves, right? Those are my favorite types of games because you have your own strategy and shit. But in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, there's a map called Underground and it's on like easy. But I love that one because I can get to like wave 38. But what you do is, I mean, I have a tactic. It's like the first thing you do is like you save up all your money to get like an LMG, so you have a 100 round mag, and then you put like a red dot scope and you get a grip, so there's no recoil. When you do that, you can just kind of post up in a corner and you can mow people down for a couple rounds, save up more money. You then get a couple. You get grenade sentry gun, and a minigun sentry gun. The combo is better than any one of them individually because the minigun slows them down, and then you hit them with a grenade, and a grenade takes them all out when they're being slowed down. You save up more money, and then you can call in a Delta team, and you can call in Predator strikes. But once you get to like round 30, 35, and it's like the battlefield is now solidified. You're now like 3 years into World War One. It has become entrenched warfare. You don't even leave your little like sentry gun cave you've made because every round is just guys in full body armor, and they have machine guns too. Early on, it's like guys in suspenders with a pistol. Around wave 35, they start coming like the extra heavy juggernauts with dogs with C4 strapped to them, and they call in helicopters. It starts to your tactic starts to break down because your walls start to get penetrated. Someone start, you're shooting at the front, you're covering your corner, and all of a sudden you realize you're taking damage. And you're like, what the fuck? And you turn around and you realize both your sentry guns are down and your Delta team's dead and they're behind you. The point of me saying all of that is you can't keep pushing to wave 36, 37, 38 if your hub is breaking down. It all goes to shit. You end up running around and it's just free firing. Sometimes you can skate out of the round, but for the most times, you're dead. You're dead if your structure doesn't break down. What we are talking about right now is, what if your structure didn't break down, but what if at some point your Delta team turned and started shooting you? Nothing works. We can't
Yeah.
progress as long as there are traitors in the ranks. And it seems Brigadier General Spaulding's book, Stealth War, it seems like that's the case. Sorry for that
Yeah.
whole rant.
Yeah. No, and it's it's one of those things, like, it's not a conspiracy theory. It's goddamn objective fact at this point. We can see this. We can see the Harvard professors being arrested, and that's like the tip of the iceberg. And what are we doing now? We're like, you know what? Maybe these Confucius institutes aren't that bad. Maybe there's just cultural differences and whatnot. And it comes down to the fact that as long as there are people, and from my understanding, studying like George Webb's work into this, he was one of the guys that was saying guys like Peter Strzok, they didn't go to Flet C. They didn't go to the academy. They were backdoored into FBI counterintelligence through the Defense Threat Reduction Agency. And so there is a element of people that, some of them have connections to Iran. Some of them have connections to other foreign intelligence services, and they can get backdoored into FBI counterintelligence through organizations like the Defense Threat Reduction Agency. And, we see this kind of thing happening. We can literally see the text messages that the lovers, Lisa Page and Peter Strzok, what happened to them? What happened to any of these people? What happened? At the end of the day, it goes back to the fact that if I am, a cunning young lad, and I'm trying to figure out how to run the world one day, how I'm going to maximize my profits, and I see a bunch of people committing treason, and they're the ones being rewarded, they're the ones getting to the top, they're the ones making the amount of money. Well, congratulations. All I'm learning from this is A, terrorism works. B, blackmail is king. And C, if you're going to, survive this situation, commit more treason than anyone else, because then you'll get away with it.
You got to go.
Okay. That is what I'm being taught. That's what game theory, that, as I'm studying what they're doing, that is the lesson that they're giving me. And that's basically what they are instructing me to do as someone that's coming up.
That's the Operation Paperclip Unit 731 tactic. If you're going to be evil, go old. If you're going to dip your toes in the Rubicon, swim across it. because the only ones that will be saved are the one or two that go really far because they have valuable intelligence. The rest of them will be hung in a show trial.
Exactly. So my question to the intelligence community is, do you want to keep enabling a system where someone like me is looking at what's going on, and that's, and I'm looking at what is my route to success going to be? Do you want me looking at that situation and realizing that the way to do that is through treason and terrorism? Because that's what I'm learning. That's what they're
Yeah.
telling me.
Yeah.
And they're basically telling you you have no other option but that, when they appoint a Waco murderer to be their ATF head. And you know, it's incentivizing it. You are incentivizing treason, and that's why I say these people need to be dealt with like enemy combatants, because there's no other way to go about it. We can all talk about, oh, we got to be nice and tolerant, this, that, and the other thing. No, we've had a decade of tolerance. This is the decade of retribution now, and in 10 years from now, we're either going to be running the world order still, or China's going to be running the world order still. And guess what? If I have to be 20 times worse than every other trader in history to stay at the top, to keep my head above water, well, guess what? That's the position they're putting me in, not the other way around.
Yeah. It's kind of like people are like, even one more school shooting is not worth having the Second Amendment. And my logic is I can't even begin to imagine what a school shooting is like. I mean, I lost a brother to suicide. I can't imagine losing a child, let alone not self-inflicted, but murdered by someone else. I can't imagine that. What I can imagine, though, is that school shootings are horrible. You tally up all the deaths in the United States, they pale in comparison to state-sanctioned genocide that always occurs after guns are seized. So it's not that I don't think shootings aren't horrible. They're going to be more. It's just there's going to be an even smaller group of people with the guns.
Yeah, and I think if you didn't take a bunch of kids that wouldn't normally socialize together, and you didn't try to shove them into a socialist system, and let's make no mistake, the only organizations out there that rival the Catholic Church in ability and the scale and ability of protecting child predators is teachers unions. But no one wants to talk about that because they're mostly women. So people don't want to talk about that. So like, I'm of the full mindset. You know what the solution to this problem is? Fucking end public schools. All right. If you're sending your kid into a gulag to be taught by communists, and you're wondering why someone snaps and starts shooting up the place, well, you're already messing up. You shouldn't have been putting your kid in a communist gulag.
It's like what Tim Dillon said, like last summer, in my best Tim Dillon voice. I have a very unpopular stance, and it's defund the schools.
Yeah, homeschool your fucking kids. Or at the very least, in your tribal community, in your family, in the people you trust, get together and hire a fucking teacher that isn't a fucking communist piece of shit to tutor your kids. Yeah. It's cheaper in the long run. It will be cheaper in the long run. Your kids will have better friends. They won't get picked on by some weird you won't end up with some kind of gang factionalized warfare happening in some communist gulag. You will have an actual community full of people that give a shit, and teachers that are paid by you, the parents, directly, not taken through some middleman communist that is going to be working around the clock with you, with your kids. And if your kid's struggling with something, you're going to have a lot more one-on-one time to work with that teacher to find out a solution. There's no reason you shouldn't be going down that rabbit hole and that kind of solution. And if the answer at the end of the day is, well, I need daycare, I need a daycare for my kid, we don't have that. Well, guess what? You need to neighbor up, you need to buddy up, and you need to start talking to like-minded people with you and find a way to split that cost and establish a way for you to have daycare and education for your child that doesn't result in them being put into a freaking gulag.
It's I mean, you're absolutely right. It's Tim Dillon. He said it as a joke originally. He was like, per capita, more kids die under under teachers' eyes than cops. And he was like, they've all got an attitude and they rape the kids. And he said it as a joke, like last summer.
But it's true. It's
very true. An episode last night after the most recent shooting, and he goes, now I'm getting a little more serious about defund the teachers.
Right.
He was like, you don't need these. He's like, these fucking pedophiles teaching your kids who to hate and who to love. But it seems that, like you said, yeah, we're in for another summer of love. It
Hmm.
seems like that's what's coming, right?
It's already happening.
It's already happening.
There's a lot of studies that basically will say that terrorism and extremist activity tends to pick up in the summer. People are just more likely to go out and fight. I'll tell you one thing. Growing up being a Florida boy and everything, I did a little bit of martial arts as a teenager and whatnot. I always felt, like kind of fast and loose. I feel like I know how to handle myself. I remember when I was in Korea, 17 turning 18, and it's freaking cold as shit there. I just remember like I've never felt so freaking tense in my life. And I'm just like shivering. I'm sitting there. I'm like, man, if I had to fight somebody right now, like I would be fucked, because I just feel so freaking tight. And so people are just, you get into your flow better in the summer. And when people that want to fight are in their flow, that's when it's going to happen.
Start feeling good, man. You gotta love. It is freeing knowing that we can just talk about whatever we want on this podcast. And what's great
Right?
is if we talk about election fraud and you happen to not like Trump and think that there was an election fraud, that's fantastic. You don't have to watch this podcast, but you should have the freedom to hear what we're saying and on your own say, fuck those guys. I don't want to listen to them. Because, when people say you shouldn't be able to talk about that, you shouldn't be able to talk about this, you shouldn't be able to spread medical misinformation because people might not get the vaccine. I always say, did I trick you into not getting the vaccine? Did I trick you into voting for Trump? And they say no. And I said, why not? And they're like, well, I saw through your bullshit. So why can't anyone else see through my bullshit? What it comes down to is admittance that only you can see what's good for everyone, and you got to shut down the others because you are the white savior. Hey, you can't listen to Tommy. He's putting out hateful thoughts, and you dumb pigs, you cattle, you're going to believe him. So I have to come in with my blue check mark and my thick rimmed glasses that my wife's boyfriend just put a load on and come in here and say, don't listen to him. He's the alt-right. No, come on here. You don't want to get a vaccine? I don't know. Seems kind of like a good idea now with AstraZeneca and J&J.
Yeah.
Or maybe in a week I'm completely wrong again, in which case go get one because I'm not a medical professional. But at the very least, there has to be an open forum for discussion of ideas, because otherwise what happens is you get blanket nuking everything, and then it's coming out now that people are getting blood clots from disease. And a lot of people say
Yeah.
it's only 6 people per million. Oh, it seems like inversely that there's a very high survival rate of vaccines, right? So I shouldn't worry. Well, there's a really high survival rate of COVID too. So if we're not going to worry about the high survival rate of vaccines, why can't we also have that same patience, that same little extra length on the leash with COVID itself? Is if there's a high survival rate, go for it. I completely agree. I'm sure 1 in 100 million people die from taking Tylenol. That doesn't mean we should ban Tylenol. I agree 100%. That shouldn't be the reason why you don't get a vaccine. Maybe you think that you won't be one of those 6 people. Go for it. I'm not a fucking doctor. But man, if you use that same exact language and say, and there's also a really high survival rate of COVID, so you should just go out and live your life, go fuck, go drink, go eat, and everyone goes, ooh, that's medical misinformation, banned. Man, I don't know. I can't fuck with that. I just can't fuck with that.
And when it comes down to the election interference thing, I was a bit of a nerd growing up. It was very weird, but I actually cared about politics when I was a fucking child. And I remember the Bush era politically. And I remember a lot of the lefty comedians and the lefty personalities at the time railing against, war crimes and all the kind of crazy shit that, everything that they normally get on about, but they were speaking truth to power at that time. And I also remember, when Obama came in, hope and change and all that, I remember all of the sensible ones. There was basically 2 things that happened at that point. All the people that were never really politically active and they just wanted to feel good win, they stopped paying attention as soon as Obama got in office, and it was just like they were out politically. It was just all back to John, listening to the Beatles and whatnot. And then the people that were left on the left very quickly were like, holy shit, Obama's like, he just escalated it. He's actually getting away with more than Bush did. And I remember those people actually, I remember them actually having credibility and some decency to go on about that and to speak truth to that power. And now it's like, we're at the point now where I don't know anyone that genuinely loves or supports Biden. Not that any of the socialists or the hardcore communists will still talk to me, but, some of the ones that I used to know that have gone down the full tanky communist route, occasionally I'll go in and I'll see what they're talking about on Twitter. They hate Biden. They absolutely hate him. They are more than happy to remind people at every turn that they stole the election from Bernie. And you know what? The only reason that they won't say that they stole it from Trump is because they know they'll get banned.
Yeah.
And that's the absolute fucked up thing.
No, which is the best thing, because it means they're getting red pilled too, and
Ex-
they
ex-
realize that us over here, it's not that we're all on the same side because we
well,
like Trump. We're here because we think it's all
mhm.
horseshit. We just so
Yeah,
happen to have liked Trump.
yeah, and that's exactly what it comes down to. Is at the end of the day, if no one is willing to actually come up and say, well, hey, here's what the Biden administration is doing great, and I don't know anyone that's willing to do that. I definitely know that there are definitely some things that the administration does right. There's definitely a broken clock is right twice a day, and that someone in policy might have drawn something up that's straight. But I don't know anyone that's going to come out and go, what, I love what Biden is doing here. I love what Biden is doing on this day. I don't know a single
Which
fucking person on the planet that is
devil's
you know
devil's advocate, which is fine. You don't have to like the guy you voted in. You can hate the guy that you vote against. That's fine too.
yeah.
That's for everyone. I've had people say like, Tommy, you're a wish washer. You jump from side to side. You flip flop. No, I've said it with David before. I go out of my way to try to be the devil's advocate because
Mm-hmm.
if we're not trying to at least entertain outside thoughts, then you shouldn't be watching my podcast. You should be watching Pornhub because that's where the real circle jerks are.
Yeah, we
That's all
have
this
to
is.
know how other people are thinking so that we can adapt to that accordingly.
Yeah,
And
or not even just to adapt to it so we can beat them.
yeah,
Maybe along the way we go, that's not a half bad idea. Maybe they say something, you go, okay, you know what? I disagree with everything they're saying, but I can fuck with that.
yeah, guess what? As much as I hate socialists and like I hate it down to the very fucking bone, occasionally when I do see them pointing out something correct and I do see them actually on target, I'm not going to hate them for it. It's like, there's a reason that they got sucked down that rabbit hole. It's because they got, they went into a communist public education system. They went into it, they got a loan, they got ripped off, and now they're completely fucked. And a lot of them, like we say that they're red pill, but they're not. A lot of these guys are like so malicious, so the mindset that they, it's like, I got fucked, so now you got to get fucked.
Mm-hmm.
And they're of that mindset. But even those guys, like they are fully aware of the corruption that's going on around them. They're not buying the bullshit. And so it's like, who the hell is left on this establishment that actually cares about this? And it's the alcoholic blob. It is the what I think it was you that said it last time. Like, it's not necessarily the Obama administration. It's like the watered down budget version of the Obama administration. I don't know if it was you that said that. Something along those lines.
Yeah, I don't remember if I said that either. If I heard you say it.
Yeah, someone said that, and I just
Mika.
love that term because it's the freaking it's 100% what that is. You
Obama,
just see
yeah.
all these same freaking think tank people just coming in, and it's just the same crap, and they don't have a legitimate stance on anything. It's like and I want to poke your brain about that Exxon book because the whole Capo Delgado and Mozambique situation
finished it this morning.
Yeah, so I'm actually, I do want to poke your brain on that because we're a bunch of guys on Don's server and whatnot. We've been talking about the Mozambique situation. It's very
fantastic. For everybody listening, we're talking about a book called let me pull it up right now. I finished it.
Yes, definitely pull it up
because I've had on the guy who narrated it before. I had him on the podcast. His name's Malcolm Hillgartner, because I think I was originally trying to reach out to the author of this author who wrote another book, and I accidentally reached out to the narrator because that's what it said on the title. And I got him on. That's happened twice now. I've had two separate Noah Levine and Malcolm Hillgartner. Both times I've had guys be like, "Hey Tommy, glad you liked the book. I didn't actually write it. I just narrated it." And I've been like, "Do you want to come on the podcast anyway?" And they're like, "Sure, why not?" So
hey, why not? They're an interesting job, and they have some interesting material.
They have. We ended up talking about George C. Marshall last time. Me and Malcolm Hillgartner. We just shot the shit about that for a while. The book that we are talking about right now is Private Empire and American Private Empire and American Power by Steve Coll. I don't know how well that's coming up.
Yeah,
but
I can see it.
Coll, who author of Ghost Wars, and I think he also wrote Directorate S, which I haven't read yet, but I want to. I'm trying to get this guy on the podcast. Saying all that to say, yeah. Before we jump into Exxon, we'll put that on the side for right now. Exxon, I want to talk about robots, dog robots. I got to pee in a second, so we'll do that. What I did want to talk about, I'm going to pee, but I'll leave with this thought, is giving credit where credit is due. You have to do that, right? You can't just, if Trump is tough on human traffickers, which he was, he rounded up more in 4 years than happened in the previous 3 administrations combined. You have to give credit where credit's due, because otherwise you've just become blind with hatred and none of your opinions matter because you're not sober. as much as I do believe the election was stolen, as much as I think Biden's a CCP patsy, I can't hate the fact that he just signed the largest U.S. military budget in U.S. history, and we're ringing the islands of China with ground-based nuclear weapons that were formerly banned. We have now said, fuck
Mhm.
it. We're putting them on the ground, and we're calling it the Pacific Defense Initiative, and we're surrounding China with nuclear weapons. If you took, if you just covered up, if you just redacted which president it was, I would think that's Trump.
Mhm.
So I can't look at that and say that's bad because Biden bad. I really like that. And I have to give, was it Biden? Maybe it's not. Maybe it's the blob. Who cares? I have to give credit where credit's due. And I'm 100% on board with that.
Yeah,
So
because at the end of the day, the Chinese are on record.
keep
They
talking. I
want
got
to,
to pee.
yeah. All right. So the Chinese are 100% on record. Basically, they want to push us out beyond the first island chain and eventually the second island chain. As my foreign policy grandfather, so to speak, Professor John Mearsheimer would say, they want a Monroe Doctrine and they want to be the regional hegemon of that area, the same way that we dominate the Western Hemisphere. And the only way we can really contain that, I know, before, Claire Lopez has talked about the Club K missile system. And, if you've watched the previous episodes before, you've heard me and how paranoid I am about the idea of potentially having hypersonic nuclear weapons or other such capabilities south of the border in South America or possibly in the Caribbean. So that's the kind of game that's being played there. And it's only natural that we have to, play catch up to that in that game of deterrence. And one of those things, I'm always going to come down to the opinion of no matter what, it's the blob. I rarely, credit a president with something just because even if he's the president, I'm the kind of person that doesn't really think politicians matter very much. I think policy people matter. And that's just because I believe we live in a bipolar oligarchic system. And I believe that in intelligence studies, I believe the proper nomenclature would be a political hybrid regime, which is we're somewhere in between an oligarchy and a democracy. And so as we're trying to continue to develop this arms race and go with containing China, I know we've talked about briefly in the past about how a lot of the establishment that is compromised and controlled by China, they want to make sure that we are more concerned with Russia and Iran. Specifically, they want us to be concerned with Russia because if you study the history of the Sino-Soviet split, you know that the Soviets and the Chinese were never great friends. If you study the history of Vietnam and whatnot, when we pull out of Vietnam, while we're in Vietnam, right, the Chinese and the Russians are basically competing with who can throw more weapons and support to the Vietnamese to throw us out of there. Well, as soon as we pull out, the Chinese basically thought that the Russians had won that game, and they were worried about a Russian bulwark possibly being set up in Vietnam against them. So in the late 1970s, China invades North Vietnam, and they learned a very hard lesson about messing with the battle-hardened North Vietnamese military. And because of that split, that rivalry right there, it's one of the reasons that we're only going to be able to contain China if we bring Russia back into the containment coalition to want to contain China. And when we look at what's going on in Vietnam and how that history developed there, it's important to keep in mind that New Zealand, which is part of the Five Eyes, will not let our nuclear vessels dock in New Zealand because they are compromised. They've actually elected people that have taught language at Chinese spy schools, and their green peace commies will not have nuclear ships dock in the port. Meanwhile, on the other hand, Vietnam, communist Vietnam, will. And we have very good relations with Vietnam because they're afraid of the nearby power, which is China. So that's kind of how we're seeing this containment coalition starting to form. That's how we're getting the nuclear deterrence in to make sure that we're reinforcing those island chains to try and hold that area. And that's also why we see the establishment working so hard around the clock to get us into a fight with Russia, because they understand that if we come to terms with Russia and we start balancing China with Russia, they're done.
Budget. Biden budget call. So from the World Socialist website, yeah, this is the one I sent you. Yeah. But hey, the reason why I like this is
Hey,
because
it's a good article though.
it's not a bunch of conservatives going, it's It's like all the Biden memes where it's like Biden doesn't know where his diaper is, and it's like, are we really doing that low hanging fruit? The same shit that was like
No,
Trump
it's
doesn't know
like,
where
come
his
on, we know it's the war machine from last time.
yeah,
Let's just
yeah.
get on
Like
with it.
even the people, Obama has big ears. Bush is stupid. It's like, can we fucking stop? Like, address it for like its merits. Clinton got a blowjob. Clinton also balanced the budget. Okay,
Yeah,
I'll fucking take the
yeah.
blowjob every
There's
day.
plenty of real shit
I
that we
don't
can be
give a shit.
complaining
Yeah,
about.
hit them on real things. Guess what? Obama's not stupid, and neither is Hillary. You don't have to like these people. They're not fucking dumb. So the reason why I like this article is it's because it's from stated leftists who are criticizing Biden. So it's not just it's not me and David and Dale going fuck, because again, you're not getting good data out of that. You're just
Yeah,
getting
and that perspective is the same that I see from communists that I used to know, and they are very critical
some
the same way.
commie that I used to know.
Once upon a time, they would tolerate a libertarian such as me among them, but not so much anymore.
I wonder if Weird Al could make that song, a commie that I used to know. It's just
Right? That would be a
yeah,
good one.
it's Bernie just writing a poem about how Biden betrayed him. You know, the top 1% that I used to know. All right. Biden budget calls for record military spending, nuclear weapons, and hypersonic missiles. The World Socialist website.org. I'll put this link in. I'll probably forget, but whatever. It's the World Socialist website, WSWS.org, from April 9th, 2021, by Andre Damon. I read that, and they're reading it as criticism. I'm jerking off to it. But Biden budget calls for record military spending, nuclear weapons, and hypersonic missiles. What?
I was going to say in a moment, people will know why I was jerking off to it when I tell them about the charts that I sent you.
yeah. It's I'm not going to read all of it, but I'll read a part of it because there's no limit. It doesn't matter. Nothing matters anymore. We're not on YouTube. We can do whatever the fuck we want.
We can do whatever the hell we want.
Amid mounting tensions with both Russia and China, the Biden administration has requested the largest military budget in U.S. history, demanding $753 billion, or more than the next 10 biggest military budgets combined, which I love. The budget calls for additional spending on nuclear weapons, which, to be fair, was started under the Obama administration, continued under the Trump administration, and is now in the Biden administration. And even though it started under the Obama administration, that wasn't an Obama thing. I don't want that to get tied up in politics. It's because our nuclear missiles are 50 years old, and you got to make sure they work. So just being fair, this isn't a left or right thing. Nuclear weapons, blah, blah, blah. The budget calls for additional spending on nuclear weapons, the upgrading of the country's nuclear-capable ballistic submarine fleet, and the development of a whole new range of long-range weapons that military planners say are necessary for the U.S. to fight a major war with Russia or China. Now they're going on to shit all over him, blah, 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 blah. Instead, just months into his presidency, the Biden administration has poured gasoline onto global flashpoints, creating the greatest period of tensions between the United States and Russia since 2014, annexation of Crimea, and with biggest tension with China since the 1970s. I want to find the good spots. At the same time, the Biden administration has moved to deploy offensive weapons on the islands surrounding China and is discussing a military alliance with Taiwan, creating a standoff in both the Strait of Taiwan and the South China Sea. I gotta give credit where credit's due. I'm cool with that. Blah blah blah. Hypersonic missiles. I'm down with that. You gotta have them. They're destabilizing, and I'd rather have if we're gonna fuck with the seesaw, I'd rather we have the fattest kid on our end.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're gonna have them. Hey, nuclear weapons are also destabilizing. I'd rather us. That's why we did Operation Paper.
Seesaws, where the fat kids get picked first.
Seesaws. Well, guess what, baby? We got America. We got McDonald's. We got Happy Meals. If we're gonna get on the seesaw, let's break that bitch.
Let's do it.
Discretionary. Blah blah blah. No, here we go. In order to carry this out, the budget explicitly endorses the so-called Pacific Deterrence Initiative (PDI), capital P, capital D, capital I, which aims to ring China with, I need to start tying a belt around my neck and rubbing my nipples, which aims to ring China with offensive land-based missiles previously banned under the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces INF Treaty, quote, leveraging the Pacific Deterrence Initiative and working together with allies and partners in the Indo-Pacific region and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO. The DoD would ensure that the United States builds the concepts, capabilities, and postures necessary to meet these challenges, including previously banned weapons with hypersonic strike capabilities capable of evading defenses to deliver nuclear payloads. I mean, and the next generation of autonomous, remotely operated stealth nuclear submarines. I mean, I'm sorry, but if you change, it's kind of like that app or that software you can install where it changes every time the word white comes up. It changes it to black.
Yeah,
so you can see how racist modern news is.
And for the record, all these things that you're talking about, these are things that China has already been developing and trying to deploy first. These are us playing catch up.
Good, as well as we should,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we should
Mm-hmm.
run the table on them.
Exactly.
Let's see. But the budget, and here's another one that this is the last bit I'll read. But this is another thing where, again, if you went through this article and just replaced Biden with Trump, I guarantee you everyone on the right would be cheering, which is why I have to say
Which is it's the
I like
blob.
it.
I always say it's the blob. No matter what, I always credit the blob.
But the but the defense budget is just one component of a massive increase in domestic spending aimed at countering China. Earlier this month, Biden announced a $2 trillion infrastructure bill, which, by the way, Trump announced first last year. So for everyone shitting on Biden, Trump was going to try to push it through. Just trying to play both sides. Aimed at strategic competition with Beijing. Explaining the bill, Biden said China is, quote, attempting to own the future, the technology, quantum computing. That's the infrastructure of a nation who's trying to own the future. They're trying to DARPA us. And I don't
Huawei,
like it.
yep.
He continued, do you think China is waiting around to invest in its digital infrastructure, in research and development, or on quantum computing? I promise they are not waiting, but they're counting on America to be too slow, too divided. This is all stuff that if you put Trump on the front of that, we'd all be cheering for. But it's Biden. So I have to, at the risk of losing half the people that only listen to me for Dale, I like it. I like it.
And also, not that there was a lot of meat on it, but you also saw today the Director of National Intelligence released their threat assessment report. And it was only 27 pages, not a whole lot of meat on it. Didn't even in the little tiny little section that they have for Africa, they don't even mention Mozambique. They only care about the north. But at the very least, the one thing they got right is that China, seeking to be the global power, is the biggest threat to America right now.
Good.
And to get back on to when you first sent me that article and how I kind of came to see this, I tend to look at everything, especially when it comes to military spending and military industrial complex. A lot of people didn't see this because it took place at the exact same time of the GameStop rebellion to an extent. That's where everyone was focusing on the stocks. But just around October of last year, I was starting to see rumors of people talking about small micro nuclear reactors and whatnot being utilized in spacecraft and whatnot. And so I don't always and so by the way, this is not financial advice, I don't speak Hebrew, but that being said,
welcome to TPC Partners. This is financial on top of giving medical advice, we also give financial advice. We're just not qualified. We admit that out front. We don't have MDs. We also didn't pass any sort
pure
of
speculation.
This is pure speculation, and our logo is just a guy sifting through silt in San Francisco looking for gold. Speculators Inc. Sorry.
Exactly. So around October of last year, as I'm hearing these rumors of, using micro nuclear reactors and whatnot in spacecraft, I went and I looked up the stock for BWX Technologies. And for those of you that don't know, they are the defense contractor that essentially produces the micro reactors that are used in a lot of submarines and whatnot. And I thought, well, you know what? This stock is being shorted right now. I'm going to buy it, buy the dip, right? I've been following, the whole Wolf of Wall Street kind of stuff since the 2008 crash. I learned this lesson way back then, and I've been keeping up on it then. Well, then what do I see as I start looking over at, as a new regime, the old war machine's coming back into power. And I'm like, well, you know what? While I'm here, I should take a look at all the other defense contractor stocks. So, I look at Lockheed, I look at Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, and I see they're all starting to dip right at the same time. They're all being shorted, right? And I see that, right? And it's for me, if I see a guy holding a baseball bat and he winds up, right? Is he going to just drop it behind him, or is he coming back for the swing? That's the way I look at that when I saw that. And I'm like, you know what? We may about to get, Biden back in. We may about to get the blob back in. We may about to get the war machine, but God damn it. That war machine. So, I don't always invest in, the mainstream stock market nowadays, but when I saw that, hell yeah, I'm betting down on the war machine, and I'm getting behind what Klaus Schwab likes to call stakeholder capitalism. I like to consider myself a stakeholder of the America Incorporated war machine.
Hey man, it's like how it's like CubeSat development in the last 10 years or so. I didn't know this, but in a lot of rockets, they put ballast. They'll put water or concrete blocks to I'm too stupid to understand rocket science. But what they've started doing is, and you have to go through God knows how many security checks to make sure that your CubeSat isn't actually C4. but you can quote unquote hitch a ride now. So if you're like working at like a NASA outreach program, or like what Warren's doing with MemeSat, he's using it as like an outreach program to like inner city schools, trying to get kids interested in space, because we're not going to the moon. So you don't have this whole generation of
Hmm.
kids getting psyched about space. He's doing his part to try to reinvigorate that. Hey, look, you can send Roblox memes to space. He's just, which I think is admirable. So what they do is, he worked for JPL, he worked for NASA, he has like some sort of Air Force. They somehow will let him in. What they do now, and this is kind of like an industry thing, is they'll remove some of the like concrete blocks as ballast, and instead you can insert your CubeSat. And whether it's you're trying to do, again, DIY climate research, you're trying to get kids interested, hey, look, here's how a satellite works. It's kind of like you can hitch a ride on the way up. Now you have to hand it into them. They basically take it apart and make sure that you're in, because
Hmm.
these defense, because they're going up on like NRO rockets.
Yeah.
NRO, they're not going to stop for 1 millisecond for your kindergarten craft project to go up if it means they can't put up their new satellite to
Hmm.
burn Asians with an IR laser from orbit. But if it does get approved and it goes up there, it goes up and it gets launched only after the original one detaches, because all priority is on that one. But if it survives, your MemeSat or your CubeSat will be thrown up there. I say all of that to say, so even if you are trying to teach inner city kids about the importance of space, and I can only imagine you're probably rallying against the war machine, which is fine, which is whatever. Go be a hippie, that's fine. You got to have them. You can't scoff at the free ride to space. So even if they're
Hmm.
launching a rocket that is continuing the military industrial complex, sometimes you got to go, you got to take a little bit of the demon dick to get to heaven. If the
You know,
military industrial complex is winding up, short them.
yeah, and that's and then buy the dip. That's why I
Yeah.
say that no matter what, there's always going to be an imperium of mankind. If we win the war, what does that mean? Well, that just means that now we got to run this shit, right? That's all it comes down to.
Yeah.
And so let's not completely smash the infrastructure. Let's just remove the traders that got to go, and then and then keep it going. Yeah, let's be surgical about this. And that's the idea. At the end of the day, is if we can get back to being fuck yeah America, yeah, there's going to be some tree huggers that are going to feel a little bit uneasy about that. But at the end of the day, if what our entire mission is about defending the Constitution, defending freedoms, defending the ideas that built this country, at the end of the day, we can go back to being the liberal and the conservative that have beers together, that watch football games together, and we can talk shit and laugh and make fun of each other's shit, and no one's going to go to blows, because at the end of the day, we're back to a point where we respect the same values. I respect your opinion on something to where, what, we're not going to fight over it.
Or we can at least
And we
respect.
need the Constitution to be that glue. If we can't all agree on that, we can't agree, and then we're at war.
At the very least, you don't even have to respect it. You just have to understand that part of living we all agree that we need to live in a free society. And if that means that, you know, it's like someone posted on Instagram the other day. It was like, Caitlyn Jenner, who's a guy with a deep voice, and he's dressed in some weird red. He looks like a demon. He's wearing this weird red. It was at some halftime. I don't know where it was. Maybe it was like March Madness, or maybe was there a recent like Grammys or something? I have no idea.
I don't follow any of that.
There was some halftime show wherever where there was a thing with people, and he's there and he's singing TikTok, like TikTok, but he's like TikTok on the clock, and he's a guy with tits in a red demon angel outfit singing in front of kids, and you kind of look at it and you're like, it's kind of like, Noah, get the boat, we need to be purged.
Yeah.
People were commenting, this is so fucked up, not in my America. Is he hurting anyone? Is he
No.
breaking any laws? That's what comes with it's freedom to have our own elections and to say whatever we want on the internet. It's also freedom to chop your dick off and sing TikTok.
Until
That's the same freedom.
until Child Protective Services knocks on your door and says, you know what, we have a problem with the fact that you didn't let your child go to, drag queen story hour or some shit.
Yeah, and that's a problem. But what I want to use that example is like, again, this isn't some pro-Trump argument wrapped up in freedom of speech martyrdom. No, I truly do believe you should be able to do that. And I don't agree with it. I don't want you within a country mile of my family
Yeah,
members.
listen, if you aspire to be a Thai lady boy, all the power to
Well,
you in the
I hope
world.
you're the best there's ever been.
That being said, when if we have to accept a society where your kid has to go to the communist gulag and the parents are going to be prosecuted and looked at because they don't want their children to be a part of that system, that's where we've crossed the line. No one's saying that you can't go and have the most, fuck it, you want to go and have the most over the top like adult entertainment show, what the fuck ever, more power to you, go do it. It's just at the end of the day, what does it come down to? It's whether or not we're allowing the state to run our culture,
Yeah.
which is what we're not supposed to be doing.
No, it's you're free to go do it. It's again what Bill Hicks said. What is it of what interest of is it of yours of what drugs I put in my body or who I have sex with? And if you're having trouble answering that, let me answer it for you. It's none of your fucking business. So take that check to the bank, cash it, and take a vacation out of my fucking life. He's yeah. It's not just like I don't think any kid should be forced to go to Sunday service and learn about conservative values. I also don't think you can be forced to go to the library and sit on the transgender demon's lap. But if you want to do if in your own time you want to learn about the founding fathers and study the Old Testament, or if you want to go dress up as a demon and fuck each other and do bath salts, if you're on your own property, you're not hurting anyone and you're paying taxes like I am, Godspeed.
Exactly. And I'm sure there are dozens of very talented drag queen performers out there that would be the first to tell you, don't bring freaking children to my show.
Yeah.
And those, they're great people. I'm sure they're absolutely wonderful people.
Yeah.
And it's really a problem that there are a bunch of actual demons out there that want to make their lives harder.
Yeah. It's one of those drag queens might pull you aside and go, look at my pay stub from last month. And all next thing you know, I'm on here dressed like a demon with no dick. Guess what? I'm clearing 200K a month. And if that's the case, well, fuck yeah, fucking hustle. But let's pivot now. So Dale and I talked on Sunday, and we were talking about it'll always come down to the soldier in the field with the gun, which is what Dale always said. Dale, youngest ever member of Delta Force, part of the CIA Special Activities Division. Not allowed to say that. He can't say that. I can say it, which is just the tip of the spear. They're the guys that when Delta gets into, they're all trying to get into that. It's the Olympic team to the NBA team. It's the best. Dale isn't that. So when Dale says something about warfare, I just listen because he is a living Rambo.
Subject matter fucking expert right
It
there.
is again, I'm not gonna tell a fucking baseball player how to throw a curveball because I don't play baseball. So when Dale speaks, I just shut up and listen. I was going to upload. I have 9 hours of footage of Dale teaching me how to shoot and shit. But seeing as how I'm iced from YouTube, I got to find ways to start uploading that here. Getting off the path. Dale always says it will always come down to the soldier in the field with the gun. You can have all the weapon systems in the world. You can have all the principles and doctrines in the world. None of it matters. And it's a point that he brought up that I'm glad he brought up because people always say, why do you need weapons? What, to fight against a tyrannical government? If the government wanted to take over, they'd take over tomorrow. And that's a fucking completely batshit insane misperception. We wanted to win in Vietnam. We wanted to win in the Middle East. And guess what? They're still running a train on us, just like they ran a train on the Soviets in the 80s or the 70s, excuse me. No one wants to rule over an irradiated wasteland. There's no spoils of war when everything's been vaporized and is in the ionosphere. You want to take over the place so that you can occupy it and rule the people. There's no people to make your subjects when they've all been killed. So yes, if Uncle Sam wanted to drop tactical nukes in every U.S. city, they could do that. There's no benefit to them because then there's no tax base to build their empire. So yes, having a gun does keep them at bay because they still can't take over Iraq and Afghanistan, where none of us are even watching. They're doing unrestricted warfare there, and we still can't win. So weapons don't. But then I said to Dale, my concern is what happens when it's not a man in the field? What happens when it's a robot that doesn't have an oath to uphold and doesn't worry about shooting American citizens and instead is just a bulletproof thing that runs on solar power or hydrogen cells and they communicate in real time and they can see in thermal and they're connected to satellites and they can jump 40 feet in the air and they can punch down walls and they have a better accuracy than Carlos Hathcock with a gun. What happens when you get these, just like we're seeing big tech, the consolidation of power, what happens when a couple of billionaires decide what topics trend? You don't see organic trending anymore. What happens when all of a sudden their power goes from controlling likes and trending to all of a sudden an army of, say, Boston Dynamic dogs?
And so the issue
Wuhan.
there, you have essentially two solutions. The first one is, well, how do we cut the power and go low tech and carry it
EMP.
out from there? And then, of course, my favorite thing, probably the second most important thing I heard Dale talk about on that particular episode was, well, the tank driver, the drone pilot, somebody has a family. All
Yeah.
right. All right. That's number one. And what was the number two thing that he was talking about when he was talking about, his experience with Navy SEALs and whatnot? Well, it's whether or not the people on the ground actually like you, whether or not they actually respect you, whether or not they actually want to be, fighting with you and learning about your culture and whatnot. And that's the main thing that you have to be effective about, because at the end of the day, you can have the drones, you can have the tanks, you can have everything else in the world. But if the people running the establishment, the people out front, the people that are supposed to be the leadership, are a bunch of unlikable, unrelatable assholes, well, the green on blue continues until morale improves. And if I don't have the means to, say, take out that armor, with some tandem warhead or something like that, well, guess what? People slip and fall in the bathroom. It's not a hard, a problem to have, guess what? All of a sudden, family members start popping up full of booze and benzos, taking a cold shower in a slippery bathroom. Do you want to live in that world? That's green on blue until the
Until the
morale
morale
improves.
improves. Yeah.
That's why I'm saying, like, if we don't hang traitors now, we are going to Los Pepes.
Yeah.
That's going to happen. That's not me saying I'm going to grab my shit and do it. That's me saying, if I'm looking at this and this is what I see happening, I can only imagine that the people who are like experts on the subject that have been doing this around the world for years, they've got to be coming to a similar conclusion and starting to sharpen the knife a little bit and go, well, how are we going to fucking deal with this?
Yeah, and we're going into an unprecedented area. We're going into robotics, which is an
Mhm.
amplification of one individual, where it doesn't matter if these guys like you. These robots, they don't have families for you to threat, and they're going to take your orders because they're not aware. They're just tools. So they don't need to like you. They don't need to follow chain of command. They don't
And,
question orders. They're just robots that, just like when I, click a thing and the light comes on, they just do it. So when
mhm.
you have a consolidation of power to where Zuckerberg can decide what 100 million or 10 billion people see as trending, what happens when he controls a drone swarm?
Yeah. So, and then the question comes down to, okay, if we see this imminent threat coming down the pipeline at us, well, are we going to wait until they build up the armor to protect them? Are we going to wait until they have a bunch of Terminators that are securing their command and control element? Or are we going to say, fuck it, let's engage in some preemptive threat, defense threat reduction, as
Mm.
they like to say? Do we just get preemptive at that point? And that's the big thing, is at a certain point, you know, if I see a baseball bat winding up and it's coming back to swing at me, am I going to wait, or am I going to
Which
engage in
is
preemptive defense threat reduction?
why that's what I'm doing now by just saying fuck it. I'm not on YouTube anymore. I'm doing what's in my power, and my power is to stop playing the self-censorship game and to just start speaking up now because I can't watch this and go, nothing. I've read enough books. I'm not smart, but I've read a decent amount in the last year, and I've learned a lot about history. And man, everywhere, every sign is showing that we're getting to the point that
When in
in
doubt,
50,
elbows out. We're
yeah,
going for it.
we're getting to a point. We're on the edge of something that in 50 years people look back on and say, "Grandpa, how did that happen?"
Mhm.
That's what's coming. And again, I'd rather be wrong. I'd
And
rather,
Grandpa's going to have to show him this podcast, because it is a clusterfuck to understand how this all
because you're
happened.
not going to be able to understand. You're going to need live documentation of it. And how are you going to do that? You're going to dig up the old EMP vault. It's
Mhm.
going to be, I can't wait for some monkey to dig it up on a distant world like 2001: A Space Odyssey.
See, that's my favorite thing about being a Warhammer 40K nerd, because the amount of books and everything, it's bigger than the Mahabharata. And if civilization just gets freaking plowed over and people discover Warhammer 40K, it's going to be the new Bible. And I love that. That's what I love that.
Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. So that video you sent me, so today is Tuesday, April 13th, 2021, 4:49 p.m. Eastern time. You sent me a video and I just glanced at it, and it was, yeah, I know there's a shooting yesterday in Minnesota, Milwaukee.
Yes.
Where was it?
An accidental
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis. Yes. It was I guess the best way to determine it is it was an accidental execution. The 26-year police veteran, Kim Potter, was the officer's name. And essentially what happened in that video, she draws a handgun. She thinks it's a taser. You actually hear her say taser, taser, taser. She puts a round into the dude. And immediately afterwards, you can hear her go, like, she knows she fucked up. This was, kind of a mistake. And even the more terrifying thing about it is if you look at the crossfire of where that angle was, immediately on the other side of the car is another police officer sitting there. And you can actually see the look on his face as he shits a brick and realizes what just happened in front of him and the fact that he was in that crossfire.
I just realized something. Just like the mainstream starting to push how dangerous vaccines are, on the same day that they release all the articles about the Pentagon unveiling a microchip that can detect COVID early.
Mhm.
That's exact. The police shootings are going to continue, not so that BLM continues, but to get the average person to agree that cops are undertrained and we can't keep doing this. The only things we can trust are robots.
Yes, and that is 100% going to be
That's what I just realized at 4:50 p.m.
Mhm.
That's what I just realized. We're going to continue with these untrained shootings. They can't be. That's the thing is, we won't be able to. No, yeah, you'll be able to do like racist cops, but you also have to have innocent cops that just didn't get the training and they cracked under pressure. Well, you can't hate the guy. That's why I propose this new bill. We are ordering 100,000 bipedal organisms from Boston Dynamics. They're owned by Google. Don't look into that.
Yeah, so you demoralize the staff and you create a system that forces the competent people out. And then you're left with a bunch of scabs, a bunch of people that aren't really going to be up to that task. And it's only a matter of time before they give you the content that you want. We were talking before about how, about hologram blue beams being used for this, but you don't even need it. The whole thing popped off right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Lower the wages of the Air Force until all the bomber pilots quit. And then once there's no more competent bomber pilots, go, I'm sorry, Mr. President, but we just got to drop the nuke. I mean, God, you got to respect your enemy. They execute so eloquently, no pun intended.
Yep. People that come up with 30-year plans, they tend to be, as devious as they can be, they tend to think it through and they tend to be effective.
They got
you have to, I started to pick up on this. Anytime you see the progressives, the socialists, debating their liberal allies, and you see them start to use the term, they love this term incrementalist. And really all that is we're on the long march. Don't say the communist part out loud.
We're on a long march to the institutions.
Incrementalist,
Long March, sponsored by Nike. When you're marching for a long time,
just do it.
You need good soles on your shoes. Nike, available for a long march. And, so one of the founders of Black Lives Matter in the last week, or at least I've learned in the last week, I thought she bought a $4 million home. No, she bought 4 $1 million homes.
Right. Absolutely.
I
believe some black journalists got I guess fact checked or censored or whatever for talking shit on that.
Well, that's what I wanted to get onto is, dude, my allergies are going to be the death of me.
It's that time of the year, man.
Dude, if these aren't allergies and this is just a directed energy weapon, touche, CIA, because it hurts.
Something that's been helping me out, Allerflow from Kirkland, your Costco. That's actually been doing pretty damn well.
I've just been smoking meth in the morning, snort some bath salts, and then I cut a chicken's head off and offer it to Moloch.
Dude, right? Sometimes you need some medical meth, to get in the get the Panzer Battalion rolling.
Sometimes you just gotta have the. Have you read Blitzed yet by Norman Ohler?
No, I haven't.
You fucking need to, dude. That was the first episode Don and I ever did. Don the Pleb and I did an episode. We did a 3.5 hour episode. The first time I ever talked to him. was after a night shift at the bar. I was exhausted. We talked for 3.5 hours. I think it's episode 191, and man, I really am autistic. I gotta remember crazy shit, but I
Right.
think the title of the episode is "Flat Earth Cucks, Methed Out Nazis, and Technocratic Space Buddhas." But
Okay, I'm sold. I'm going, I'm going back and I'm
it's a
checking that out. That'll
solid episode. And the episode might be better than the book, actually. And I loved the book. It was just a solid episode. But so I was just thinking, and we're around the 2 hour mark. So I think around time, I think it's okay for us to start kind of going off the rails now. I think we talked about enough. I've been
Yeah,
holding back conspiracies, but I think we got out enough factual. Oh wait, did you want to talk about the ExxonMobil book?
so I definitely do want to talk about that
Yeah.
because one of the big things that has been blowing up recently, a conflict zone that I've been keeping an eye on now, is Cabo Delgado in Mozambique.
Yeah. What
I
what
know
the
I
hell's
sent you,
happening?
so I know I sent you some links on that, but essentially, you have Mozambique is basically in the record for how many civil wars can you really have and get away with. And for them it's always been that battleground between socialism and communism and the neoliberal West. And essentially what happened now is the neoliberals have basically tricked the socialists into thinking that socialism is neoliberalism. Now they have this giant corrupt corporate regime kind of out of Maputo, which is in the south. And this is important to remember that it's in the south because Cabo Delgado is far in the north, and that's where all the gas is being exploited by people that don't feel like they're being taken care of by the government out of the south. And so what ends up happening, first you had a bunch of Russian mercenaries going in from what was Wagner, but Wagner was basically rolled up. All the elite kind of operators, they got drafted into like a higher tier PMCs on the Russian end, and the rest of them were just kind of Ukrainians that got cut loose and were persona non grata. After they get kicked out, Dick Advisory Group comes in, and they're trying to basically maintain the area of Palma and maintain security and take back some of this stuff. Very undermanned. I believe they just had just over like 24 guys. And allegedly, a lot of these guys were like South African Special Forces veterans, age 55 to 65. So these are old men going in there and trying to contain this situation. And none of them have really had the air support that they need. They have like an Mi-8, maybe a Hind here and there, and they have a lot of trouble keeping it fueled. No one's really wanting to pay. People are more worried about paying for vaccinating animals in Mozambique against like anthrax than like keeping the helicopters fueled. So anyway, they don't renew the contract on Dick Advisory Group, and they have to go. Now, as far as I'm aware, I believe there are U.S. advisors, Green Berets, in there now trying to figure out what's going on. And God bless them, because if they have to work with the Mozambique military, well, the reason that every other group that has gone in there gets blowback is because all the people of Cabo Delgado do not feel represented by the government of Maputo. So if you're going in there on Maputo's dime and you're looking after Maputo's interests, you're not going to have a lot of friends. And that's what drove Wagner out, is they kept getting green on blue. It's just a major clusterfuck. France is also in the region, but they've Mayat, which is just off the coast there. But they've kind of had their snouts whacked in Mali. They've got some political problems where military action is just not very popular. So the French are just mainly doing surveillance, and no one really wants to provide the air support needed to contain the situation in Cabo Delgado. Now, the two major stakeholders there that are overseeing all the LNG in that area are Total, which is the French money involved, and Exxon, which is clearly why I'm so curious on the subject there. And
Not
they've essentially suspended everything as like a pressure tactic. But the truth is, they're the only ones that are going to be able to fund the air support needed for anyone to actually deal with something. The local government doesn't want any foreign intervention. Everyone else is just kind of basically sitting on their asses because there's so many political landmines over this thing that no one can really get a hold of what's going on. And the worst thing of all is that everyone on the media is just saying, oh, it's Al-Shabaab and ISIS, Al-Shabaab and ISIS. And that's a misnomer completely. This is a 100% a grassroots populist rebellion that is going into revolt because they hate their government, and they hate that they feel that their government is selling them out and not giving them the development and the infrastructure that they want. And it just so happens that when they're trying to figure out how to style themselves as an insurgency, well, you're going to style after the people that have been the most successful. And who's that? That's ISIS and Al-Shabaab. And so that's kind of the misnomer it's happening. If I didn't know better, I'd say media is actually just kind of egging the ISIS thing on, just hoping it'll get the US involved. But it's a misnomer at best.
For the record, for everyone listening, I'm not some Exxon expert. I'm not a a natural resources or fossil fuel. Of all the audiobooks I listened to, the most recent one was just one on ExxonMobil. So I don't want anyone to believe that David's asking me because I'm the voice of this.
I believe he's the most senior executive
I
here.
believe
Listen.
this is welcome to TPC Consulting, where we will tell you about global energy reserves. Now, I have to tell you, I have zero education in this. We have no holdings. We've never actually had a positive influence. But if you'd like to come into our office, have a seat. We have coffee. So, yeah, the book is insane because just some takeaways early on. I think Putin was meeting with George Bush in like 2003 or 4, and they were talking about like Exxon going in and getting a share of whatever oil they had, and Exxon wanted a controlling share because they didn't want to be able to be kicked out. Exxon also pushes for they want control of things to such an extent that in case, and this just shows what kind of countries they operate in, they want controls of things that operate beyond the scope of the current government in case it's collapsed in a revolution and the leaders are beheaded, which means is they don't want just access to a territory. They want preemptive access to where they can wall it off. They bring in mercenaries and they set up checkpoints for something like 2 miles in every direction. So even if, like, hey, king of wherever, of we'll just say Namibia, hey, thanks for letting us come in here. Thanks for letting us drill here. But it's not just that you have to let us drill here. We get to take over this territory. And if you don't want to sign off on that, that's fine. We're getting out of here. Good luck getting more than $10 in your next year as a nation.
And what caused Exxon and Total to essentially suspend all their projects is they basically told the Mozambique military, hey, beyond what their own security, they told the Mozambique, hey, we want your army to provide security for 25-kilometer zone out past that. And when Mozambique army, which by the way, that's a misnomer in itself. If you're thinking there's a Mozambique army, just throw that right out the window. We're talking about basically decentralized tribal militias that get paid because they're the ones with the guns and the gats that will shake you down for bribes and whatnot along the way. There, the idea that there's a centralized force there, it's just kind of throw that out the window. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's the thing is like Exxon would work with these like armies and other nations, and like, but even within the army, it'd be like, oh, it'd be like if you were like, it's kind of like if I was like, hey David, can you I'll send you my podcast, can you put them on a hard drive? You're the Mozambique army. You're like, sure, I'll put them on a hard drive. But am I trusting that hard drive? No, it's a good backup. But what am I doing? I'm putting it on my. I need to get them to sponsor me. That's what I need to do. That's what
there you go.
That's what I'm going to do after this podcast is email them. What's your podcast about? Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
It's data.
You'll find out.
I use data.
You'll find out why I need your hard drive.
Why do you need this hard drive? This is we normally sell this to like military contractors. Tommy, don't you also buy Faraday bags from Mission Darkness, who is primarily an intelligence? Why do you have all of? Why do you? Hey, what are we asking questions for? Do you want to do business or not?
Yeah, you want the money? Hey,
I mean, what better way to tie this into Exxon? Why do you care do you want the money or not? Don't worry about what we're doing in our little area.
Don't worry about it.
Don't fucking worry about it. But so they would bring in mercenaries and their own contractors and their own intelligence apparatus. And then on top of it, sure, if your army wants to help us, we're not going to turn it down, but we're not relying on it. And so, but they don't just do this with third world nations. They were doing this with Putin. They're saying, no, we don't want less than 51%. We want 51. Like, we don't want more than that. Like, you're more than welcome to come in and get your share, but we want our own area that is ours. And, apparently Putin met with Bush in 2003 and was talking to like the secretary of the DOE or something. And you could see this difference in how our societies operate because Putin was like, just, tell them that they can't have 51%. Tell them that if they want to go work for Russia, tell them they can't have 51%. And if they're not interested, tell them it doesn't matter. That's what you're going to do. And Bush looked at him, and I think the exact quote is, nobody tells those guys what to do. It's George W. Bush.
They're Texas oil, man. You gonna tell them what to do?
Yeah. Do you know who my dad is? Do you know where he came from?
Poppy Bush. Guess what? It's not. We don't call him Poppy because he was a dad.
When my dad picks up when Poppy picks up the phone and it's Raymond from ExxonMobil, he says, "Sir." Poppy says, "Sir." It's these guys. Yeah. these guys gave my dad a black eye because Hinckley didn't finish the job, right? It's
Hmm.
but to me that's sort of what the author was saying, Steve Call. He was like, that shows the difference, not just how our societies run, but it also shows the power of Exxon. That
Hmm.
Bush was like, hey, you better give them 51%, or they're not gonna if you say you can only have 41 or 49%, not only are they gonna say no, but they're also not gonna just be forced to do it anyway. These guys do what they want. They operate how they want. They don't give a shit.
The strong do what they will, the weak suffer what they must.
Yeah, and and again, which is why I always say it's a zero-sum game. I'd rather be the strong and have to be a little evil. I'd rather the Pacific Deterrence Initiative. I think it's great. I think it's fucking
Hey,
man.
if
I
someone's going to make you live in hell, you may as well reign, right?
You might as well run it, right? If you're gonna be in hell, you might as well be at the table at the bottle service with Satan and Hitler, right? That's a great soundbite. But I hope the Pacific Deterrence Initiative. I hope this leads into Pacific Rim, bringing in robots. But point, ExxonMobil. Yeah, the limited amount I know is, so they would then say, something like, we don't work with the U.S. military, like we're not an arm of the U.S. military. Um, but when Exxon would say, hey, even our mercenaries and intelligence apparatus can't secure this location. By the way, military, I know you buy your oil from us. I'm just saying that we can't do it. It's not profitable for us to do it, even if we
It would
beef
be
up.
very unfortunate.
It would be very unfortunate if we weren't able to provide you with the oil you need for your 800 bases around the world. But, hey, and then the next day, literally, when I can't remember where it is, but all of a sudden the Navy decides to start patrolling there. Well, what a coincidence. I think we can put in an oil rig there. Your
Mhm.
carrier is going to be nearby. Oh, you're putting a new like littoral ship or a couple of like destroyers. They're just going to be stationed there for the next 20 to 25 years. Oh, well, if that's the case, we might just, we might put down our picnic table right here and get an oil drill going and maybe build a whole rig. And hey, oh, and you buy our oil? Well, what a coincidence. Oh, you know Bush too? Oh, so do we.
Yeah.
And then it just
And
keeps happening all over the world, and it's just the oddest
yeah,
coincidences.
and then so then you take that to the next level and you think about, well, Exxon also has a refining facility in China, a massive facility in China there. And you look at, say, oil producing nations such as Qatar, that they under and Saudi Arabia is the same. They understand that the oil and the energy industry that they have is a musical game of chairs. It's shrinking over time, and they have to make use of what time they have now to essentially diversify their economy and get set up for how things are going to be in the future. And so as they're looking at that happening and they're wondering, seeing all these LNG ports that could pop up around the world. Well, one of the things is we saw Qatar kind of get interested in Mozambique thing, and pure speculation, but I fully believe in a lot of ways Qatar just leaned over and said, listen, this LNG find in Mozambique, just just sit on it. Just sit on it. We don't need that right now. And to an extent, if you want to get like full Machiavellian psychopath about this, well, if we just let that situation in Cabo Delgado turn into a little bit of a prairie fire, and we let all of the baddies, the insurgents, drive the civilians out of that area and drive them south, and we wait until it's nothing but baddies in that
Oh, it's
area.
nothing but until the
Well,
crosshairs just glow
guess what?
red.
Guess what? We can just mow the whole goddamn thing
Oh,
over and develop it however the
hey,
fuck we want.
when all the people run, we can take the laser guides off the JDAMs and just bring in the B-52s.
Not saying it's ethical, but maybe
You don't need any. You don't need to go down the chimney when everyone in the neighborhood's bad. Just
you
drop
know.
it. Hey, man, that's not a bad thought. But by the end of this book, and so there's another woman, I can't remember her name, but she was 16 when she graduated the University of Chicago. She was like a child prodigy. She went and worked in the White House for like 8 years or something. Went to learn all about geopolitics. Just one of these like savants. She went to work for ExxonMobil, and she later said, and this is a woman that had TSSCI clearance in the White House. She had Yankee White clearance, and she also had top secret secure compartmentalized information. She said that was nothing compared to the internal in-house security clearances
Mm-hmm.
at Exxon.
And that's why I've always said that like Lockheed has a bigger clandestine
Yeah,
service than CIA, because at the end of the day, you can't FOIA Exxon, you can't FOIA Lockheed.
which got me thinking, do they have a bigger one than the CIA, Or is there an even another level behind that? Is that the CIA hiding behind Exxon and Lockheed, knowing that they can't be FOIA'd? I think that's
We can get paid more and not be FOIA'd?
where do I
Hmm.
sign? You don't need to
Hmm.
sign. There's no
Hmm.
contracts. No one's allowed to look at it. It's proprietary.
Hell, we'll pay you in kilos of hard drugs. What's your
What do you want? We'll pay you
what do
in
you like?
senator terms. What do you want? We got the dough. We print the money. What the fuck do you mean? How much do you want? Just come over and you can put a duffel bag under the printer. But it's, I think it was Jeremy Corbell or George Knapp or maybe it was Lazar who said that's why he thinks UFO technology is held by privately controlled companies because there is no FOIA. You don't have a right to know what uh their or
Mm-hmm.
their corporate structure is they can hide it, which power would then make you believe. But do you really think that there's a CIA going, Exxon's got a bigger apparatus than us? Shucks. No, they're going, okay.
Not if they're getting paid more. They're sitting, I'm just building my resume so that I can get that sweet Exxon
Sweet,
job.
sweet Exxon job. But then how does Exxon get the money? They go, hey, we've got a tighter security apparatus than you, CIA. CIA goes, hey, well, do you want government contracts for the next 100 years? Yeah, let us in on it. And maybe we're going to run an operation from one of your oil rigs overseas, and maybe our guys aren't going to have any insignia on their uniforms, and they look a lot like Dale Comstock. But don't worry about that. Has nothing to do with oil, but we just got to go into a nearby town. We can't have a U.S. base or a lily pad nearby, but what we do have is Exxon. So we're going to
Mm-hmm.
fly in on the Exxon jet, and our guy's going to be wearing overalls with a hard hat. But if at some point in the night he flips up the hard hat and it's got nods, don't worry about it. It's business. Don't worry. The contracts will keep
Listen.
coming. Don't
If a
worry.
few employees glow in the dark, don't worry about it.
You
That's
know,
normal.
you
That's
know,
normal.
you know that's happening.
Oh,
That's what
I
Dale was
mean,
saying. Dale was
yeah.
telling me. He was like, because I remember I was like at the phone call I've talked about before, the phone call I had with Dale last summer. I was like, Dale, above Delta is Special Activities Division. And you can see on the first time I ever talked to Dale, episode 50, where I'm like, do you know about? And I was like, I couldn't remember it. I was like, I looked it up in high school. It's a thing called the Special Activities Division. It's part of the CIA. And you see him nodding. And I go, oh, you know about it? Like a dipshit. I go, you know about it? And he goes, Ground Branch. And I go, were you ever part of that? And he goes, we won't talk about that. And I smiled, and he just kept staring at me. And I was like, we won't talk about that.
Yeah, because you just went, do you want to go to prison?
He doesn't care. He's like, I'll fucking shoot you myself. And but so that's what Dale was in, and for anyone that plays the Black Ops video games, that's what Alex Mason is in. Mason, that's what he's in. Is it's Special Activities
The
Division.
numbers.
Yeah, the numbers. But if you ever look before at the beginning of each level, before it redacts you always see it. One of the things that says Special Activities Division. That's Dale in real life. And because I can never be satisfied, I can't be satisfied with a shockproof hard drive. I have to get like a bulletproof aluminum one. I asked Dale, I was like, so it's above Special Activities Division? And he goes, mercenary. And I was like, it's not a sexy answer. Mercenary? He goes, not Blackwater mercenary, like solo hitman agent 47. Like shit that if I told you, you wouldn't believe. It could be a blockbuster movie. And I can only imagine that means flying in on a old CH-47 to an oil rig off the coast of fucking Mozambique with a hard hat on, and Dale's just cranking an old engine with a wrench for 5 days, and on the fifth night, he goes and undoes his metal lunchbox, and it's a silenced Glock, and Dale slips out into the night dressed as an employee, and some local warlord gets iced, and not even JSOC knows about it because it's even darker. Even the Special Activities doesn't know about it because it's even darker.
Exactly.
It's
That's
the
how do you
truth.
keep things? How do you actually keep operational security? Well, if you can
Yeah.
completely go outside of any kind of documented network,
Well,
what does Robert Barnes say? Never in writing, always in cash.
Well, it's what we just said, right? That's a great quote, but it's what we just said, right? You go private, there is no FOIA,
Mm-hmm.
but there's still an internal structure.
Mm-hmm.
You got to go one step beyond that. Go to where there's no structure.
Old boys networks,
It's
100%.
not written down. The smartest guy I've ever met was a friend I had in college, and I can't say who it is for his own privacy. He's a physician. He's intimidatingly intelligent. It's scary talking to him. And I remember asking him, I was like, who killed JFK? And he goes, I don't think we can know, because I don't think it's that the information can't be found, that it's in some vault somewhere. He goes, I don't think, and I go, oh, it was destroyed. He goes, I don't think it ever existed. And I'll never forget this. It was like fall 2012, and we were sitting on the back porch. He goes, I think someone met with someone else in a snowy field in the middle of Pennsylvania in 1963, and they went for a walk out in the crops. And when they had their coats pulled up over their mouths, someone gave the order to someone else. And it doesn't exist. There's no one to kill because there's no paper trail. He goes, I don't think it exists. I think it exists. It's like in Hitman. If you want to get a perfect score in Hitman, you go outside where you have like
Mhm.
goggles that can see where the security camera
So
is looking. You
in a
go
lot of ways, this
outside
goes
the
back
camera.
to Guanji. And
Yeah,
so, what is our version of Guanji in English? Well, you might hear the term Old Boys Club or Old Boys Network.
yeah.
And where does that term come from? Well, it comes from the idea of that you have a bunch of school kids in university or whatnot, and they are all students of some pupil. And as they go out into their careers later on, they were in a fraternity. They're all together. They're
Mhm.
skulls and bones and something like that. So that's the kind of thing that shows up. And that's what we call the old boy network. And those entirely exist that day. And to an extent, it's the most secure system you have.
Just
It is the
because
old
it's
boys
not
network.
because
Because
it's not a structure.
when the British came over here and were telling us like, hey, well, how do we set up an intelligence apparatus? Well, what's the first thing they do? Find me some PhDs that can win a bar fight, and then we're gonna go set up Camp X up in Canada somewhere
Mhm.
and teach them how to kill people. You know?
Yeah, you have to step out. There's again, you have Delta operations. Above Delta, you have the Special Activities Division, and they're talking about, I think, in Exxon, they're talking about in the Exxon book, they're talking about how sometimes like informants for Delta would inform them about someone nearby, and that's how they'd find out it was the CIA. The Pentagon would find out about what the CIA was doing
Mhm.
through the informants that Delta would pay with cash. They'd find out, oh, that's agency boys. It wasn't that they were next door telling each other. They had to find out the
Mhm.
long way. And again, so if you could have something like Delta or DevGru, and then above that would be agency. Well, even the agency can be compromised, right? You could have
Mhm.
CCP sympathizers in there. What's even darker than that is you got to go to something that it's not. There isn't a name for it.
We
There
all
isn't.
went to school together, and I know you're
Exact,
not a commie. You know I'm not a
yeah,
commie. I know why you're in the fight. You know why I'm in the
yeah,
fight.
exactly. It's
That's
not. It's
mhm.
not. Delta has insignia, Special Activities Division. They don't have that, but it's still the fact that you and I know what the name is. Special Activities Division tells you that it's not truly black. The thing that's truly black is the thing that there is no name for. They'll
Mhm.
say it's called mercenaries, but it's called mercenaries in the same way that a nuclear weapon and brass knuckles are both weapons.
Mhm.
One gives you a black eye, the other blots out the sun, right?
Yeah.
It's so yeah. And what other way would you do that than something where so how do you truly get in, right? It's cash, cash, cash. That's how you do
Mhm.
it. Well, what better way to do that than with the most profitable corporation of all time? That in a sense is already the bribe. You don't need a bribe of, hey, look the other way, we're flying in a Cessna tonight. It's, hey, you have an oil rig. They have already paid off your whole government. So this doesn't even, there is no footprint of, they
Mhm.
later find out, okay, well, I took some cash from a guy in a black suit. He told me to turn off the radar. No, it's an open secret. It's just, yeah,
Mhm.
Exxon's here. They're pumping oil. You don't like it. But guess what? The reason why we have paved roads and public schools in our third world
Mhm.
country is because Exxon. You go in the back door of that. And that is what I can only imagine is the absolute height of black ops.
Mhm.
It's just, I mean, who the fuck? It's like Dale said. It's a foggy forest of mirrors.
And the only people you're going to be able to trust are those in your old boy network that you've known for so long that you know what motivates them.
And there's
And
no,
those are the only people you can trust. And you got to
there's
constantly vet them too, because people fall off the wagon and they do dumb shit.
yeah, and I think that they probably are the most trustworthy because there is no courts, there's no military tribunals. You just get shot in the head. And there's no one to
Exactly.
come looking for you
And it's like,
because there's no record of the operation.
why do I trust the cartel more than I trust an intelligence community? It's because I know one of them executes traitors. At the end of the day, that's it.
Jesus.
If I'm going to pick a side that I got to fight for, I want the ones that execute traitors because I want to be shot in the face. I don't want to be shot in the back.
Yeah, that's very true. Which, man, kind of, I got to go pee again in a second, but I've been thinking about like what's happening behind, it's what does it look like? Right? Okay, well, it looks like there's a Biden administration. Okay. Well, what is behind that? What happens when you kind of peel back the veil more? I mean, everyone knows. I mean, 99% of votes were in at 1:48 a.m. and somehow 5 states stopped counting and go in the opposite direction. Everyone kind of knows it happened, and you don't have to believe it. The numbers show it. Whatever.
Warren Flood in a red Ferrari, and all
Yeah,
that kind of
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. But then kind of like special act, it's like everyone thinks, saying that the Biden administration in control is like saying the tip of the spear is Delta.
Yeah,
Saying that
it's like saying the Afghan government runs Afghanistan.
well,
It's
I
kind
mean,
of
yeah, saying Delta or DevGru is the tip of the spear is saying that the Biden administration is in charge. Saying that it was stolen is like saying the tip of the spear is the Special Activities Division. To me, I think that there must be another level above it. And the only thing I can think of is it's like, so don't listen to anyone's words, like watch their actions, right? I don't care what they're saying. If that's
are they
something,
putting tanks on the border?
exactly, like I don't care if they outwardly say the US government has no interest in oil. If where Exxon is operating, the Navy happens to hang out. You can tell me whatever you want. I'm just looking at the actions. David, don't worry. I know I'm loading this gun. Don't worry. I know I'm loading it. I
And
know
that's
I'm pointing it at you, David. Don't worry. It's so what I wanted to say is Biden administration's in charge. No, you got to look further. It was stolen. I think that there's got to be another level behind that because the Pacific Deterrence Initiative, that doesn't look like a pro CCP government move. That looks like there are deeper elements in the government. So is not, I mean, we're 2 hours and 20 minutes in. So folks, if you didn't want a conspiracy episode, you got a solid 140 minutes of no conspiracies, but we're going in now. Was the stolen election, was that flipped? Was Biden turned into some sort of triple agent? Do we now let the CCP think that they pulled off a coup? I mean, I gotta pee.
My big argument against that, and this is why I would just never advocate that, is once again going back to leadership, and the idea is, do we want leadership that actually inspires people and makes people want to work with the government that you're putting in power? Or are we putting in leadership that's going to encourage people to fight it? And to that extent, we could say this is like super 4D accelerationist chess, where like Biden's the best thing to ever happen because even if me and the socialists, while we might not talk to get together as much or get along the way we used to, if we both agree, holy shit, this Biden guy's a fucking war criminal asshole, what the fuck ever, continuation of the blob. It's not the worst thing in the world. I would argue against that on a strategy level, just because at the end of the day, we're supposed to be the beacon on the hill. We're supposed to have a leadership program that people aspire to. And the biggest problem when we look at pipelines and what's happening right now, what's the biggest problem we have right now? We have a huge leadership gap, a major leadership gap, specifically into generations coming up, because we've grown up in this kind of unipolar world where we just imagine that whatever the establishment power at be is holding our hand as we go along to the Star Trek fully automated luxury gay space communism, wherever the hell you want to call it. But now that we actually have to get back into the mindset of great power politics, the mindset of multipolar balance of power politics. And this is just a mindset that's completely alien to everyone else. And at the end of the day, part of that diplomacy is strength, peace through strength, and the idea that, hey, we're going to put up a leader that people want to support. I've spent a lot of time studying, when I was a kid, the martial art that I took was a Russian martial arts. A lot of the guys that were instructors of that were former Russian Spetsnaz and Russian airborne guys that came over in the 1990s. They fully understood the horrors of communism. They fully understood how horrific things are when, the government collapses and everyone's trying to figure it out. And in a lot of these ways, some of these guys are some of the best Americans on the fucking planet today. These are the kind of people that would backhand a punk teenager like me that thinks, maybe Obama's not so bad. And shit like that. But at the end of the day, when you look at a Russian is never going to worship a political leader in an ideological way. There's never going to be Russians that support somebody the way, say, Americans supported Trump. There's always going to be Russian realism. That's just the way that they're wired. They understand that, we live in just a brutal reality. So they don't love Putin. They don't think, worship him or idealize him. They respect him because he's competent. They respect him because he knows how to run things. They respect him because at the end of the day, he shows strength, and and people are willing to choose stability. The Russian people, who have understood what massacres and horror is, they have understood decades of instability. They are always going to choose a stable country versus, some feel good Navalny, let's, pro LGBT, whatever the hell you want to push, Western idea of what a Russian leader should be. They're going to stick with Putin because at the end of the day, they want to be able to eat, they want to survive. Yeah. And we need to get to a point where we're thinking about our leaders that are, at the very least, if they're not going to inspire people to say, like, I want to be like Putin one day, or I want to be as competent as that one day, at the very least, we need people to think, you know what, my government kind of knows what I'm doing. Maybe I shouldn't be figuring out how to fight my own government. And that's really what's happening right now, is that we, through demoralization and through the idea that we have such a weak regime, we're just signaling weakness. We're signaling to everyone within our country that it's time to fucking fight. And that's, and obviously, as someone that, wants to see freedom come back, I would love to see a revolution come back in an American way, but it would be a lot better if we could handle this through the institutions, if we could deal with the traitors properly through the channels that are supposed to be there, and get back to a point where we have a stable regime. I don't care if it's a Democrat or a Republican. I care, at the end of the day, do people respect what that office is supposed to be, and what our leadership position in the world is. And if we're just living in this country where it's like, all right, I checked the D on the box, and I'm putting my faith in that the blob has my best interests at heart, and that they're going to, somehow learn from all the mistakes they've made over the previous decades. And now all of a sudden they're going to be the good guys and they're going to get things right. Well, I don't think that's a accurate way to view things. I don't think that that's when you keep touching the stove and you keep getting burned, I think at a certain point you just have to accept, maybe we should be rethinking how we're choosing our political leaders. And in a lot of ways, long form content's going to help with that. We're already kind of starting to see that, but yeah, like what you're doing and whatnot. Listen, if Trump had went on Rogan the way every other Democrat candidate wanted to, other than Biden, really, every other candidate was drooling to get access, to be able to pitch their ideas in a long form, way. Trump did. For the outsider that, was supposed to be fighting all that system, he really didn't fight in a lot of the ways that would have been smart. He really didn't go out and try to support the infrastructure that was trying to have his back. And at the end of the day, the future leadership, I don't know if you ever seen, there was the Oliver Stone documentary where he sits down and he's interviewing Putin and whatnot, but I don't care who you are, it's a really good documentary. And one of the things you learn very quickly, whether you love Putin, whether you hate Putin, he's a fucking smart man. He knows what the fuck he's doing. He's not an idiot. And for the most part, I would say he's interested in stability. I'm not going to say that he's a moral actor, but at the same time, he's doing the best he can to minimize just mindless violence and massacres. And the country he inherited, as he's coming into power, was just that. I mean, when the Soviet Union collapsed, you had Spetsnaz units being hired out as mercenaries against each other. You have, essentially military coups kicking off, all these oligarchs that just, became rich overnight or just playing warlord games. And a guy like that, the mindset you have to do that, this guy is someone that we have to respect. I refer to him as the Bismarck of our era, because he's so tactfully played everyone that thought that they were going to control him, and somehow managed to pull Russia back from the dead. Our establishment thought that Russia was dead, gone, buried, never coming back. And one of the reasons they're so terrified of Russia now, not just because they don't want Russia to be part of the containment coalition against China, but also it's kind of a personal irk, because they thought they had slain the dragon. They thought it was dead, never coming back. now Russia's somewhat coming back. Yes, they have problems. Yes, the energy market's declining on them. Yes, they have some demographic issues that are coming in. But at the end of the day, Putin survived. He's getting off of the IMF. He's getting more gold than, I think, going back to like Tsar Nicholas. All right. This guy is prepared to cut off from all of the banking cabal that has taken over the world, and they hate him for that. And regardless of how you feel about his personal politics or his beliefs or what the hell ever, he's fucking effective. And he's been far more effective at breaking free from a tyrannical system than anyone that's been in American politics in my lifetime.
Yeah, no, it absolutely it absolutely is. And I'm sure that these will be some good sound bites for people to try to prove that we're Nazis, but you have to look at someone that does that, someone that kills journalists, someone that potentially blew up those apartments as a false flag.
Well, some journalists are intelligence assets, and
man, maybe they're fair game. Who knows? But when you look at someone like that has resisted seeming globalist control, at a certain point, you got to get into some sort of cold calculus that, it's kind of like school shootings. School shootings we'll never get rid of them. And that's the reality is, as long as we have the Second Amendment, actually, we can get rid of the Second Amendment. The fact that there's 500 million guns in the United States, there's going to be shootings.
With 3D printing technology going the way it is, yeah, it's a lost game. You're fighting the war on drugs all over again.
But the reality is and this is another great soundbite, but I'd rather take a school shooting every day, because if you get rid of every gun somehow, you're gonna lose more people through an authoritarian regime, mandated or tertiary or secondary effect genocide than you are with. So if you have 100 students die every day in schools, and you have 36,500 deaths a year, that's horrible. If you get rid of guns, you're not offsetting that. You're just going to end up with millions of deaths, including those kids. It's a horrible thing. Look, you get rid of Titanic's going down. Okay.
Now, it gets worse than that when you have a helpless population and whatnot too. I mean, you study the horrific stuff that happened, like the Holodomor, the Red Revolution and whatnot. We're talking about people taking kids and stapling their intestine to a tree and making them do laps until they collapse. That's the kind of stuff that's going to, once we disarm the population, and all these people are now at the mercy of the control freak psychopaths that, are like Hitler and that OCD, everything's got to be clean, everything's got to be pure. Well, guess what? Pretty soon we're going to start to see some torture. We're going to start to see the lampshades, the shoes, and eventually it's going to be like, you know what? This is too much work. Just gas them.
And you know what? 6 million is going to be a low score. They're going to pull off 60. They're going to pull off 600.
Yeah, CCP killed more than both Hitler and Stalin. They're still going today, and we're in bed with them.
Yeah, and that's the reality. I mean, the idea that the government's not going to take over. Dude, Jesus Christ, what we've seen in the last year is the importance of owning weapons. I mean, it does when the government does. It's, again, I think it's a Dale quote. He said something about landmine or guns being like landmines. They're cheap, they're easy to produce, and you sprinkle them all over a territory, and it becomes denied for the next couple decades.
So, are you familiar with the deer gun?
No.
So the deer gun in the Phoenix program was essentially it was a single shot 9mm. The barrel basically screws off the front. You pop a 9mm in there, you screw it back on, one shot, go up, pop somebody, then you take their shit. There's a company out there, I think it's called the Altor, that makes kind of like a continuation of this, but even cheaper and shittier. Same function, the barrel unscrews, you put the 9mm in there, you screw it back on. But what's kind of actually hilarious about it doesn't actually have a real trigger. It's a spring-loaded contraption that you pull the trigger and then you let go, and the trigger slamming back forward is what fires the round. And it's like a super cheap ass, basically continuation of the deer gun. That, yeah, you could dump. When I first saw that, I was like, you know what? We should just dump like 5 million of these into UK and be like, you know what? Whoever nails Prince Andy.
Well, not even. You just dump them in there, give people a form of sovereignty and autonomy, and whatever system arises, because that's the most stable one. I think the Second Amendment was the single most brilliant thing they ever did. They just said, give everyone guns. I don't care how it evolves. I don't care how technology evolves and how social norms evolve. When everyone, in a sense, has the ability to become their own sovereign mini nation, I am the nation state of Tommy, and I have my income and I have the thing I produce. I am my single seat at the UN, and I have a gun. That is my nuclear weapon. You never know who has it. It's the most brilliant thing. You just sprinkle them in there. It's fucked.
Yeah, I think everyone should have at least 2 to 3 firearms within reach at all times. Hell, I'm a big proponent. Keep a wheel gun in the shower. That's my way of doing it, because
I think
sometimes if they charge at you while you're in the shower and you're in a real tight space, you have a semi-auto, and they're trying to pin you down to the ground and it goes out of battery, it goes click out of bang. But if you have a wheel gun in the shower and they buckle you and they're like trying to fondle your nuts and everything, and you press that into something, not only is that round going into them, but all the gas behind that round's going into them. Then you get that overspray.
that's like yeah, who's that guy? That guy with the raspy voice. You know who I'm talking about? He's like he looks like a Clint Eastwood character. He has some. I forget what the name of his channel is.
Gotta give me a little more go on there.
I'm trying to remember. I don't. The video is like it's old. It's like 10 years old. I think it recently went viral. But it's this guy, and he sounds like this. And he's like a sheriff or something. And he's like, He's like, if you're gonna want to have a pistol, you're gonna want a revolver, because a revolver you put up against them, and you're gonna need to take a shower because there's gonna be overspray.
Yeah.
But
I've seen that video.
I've
that
seen
guy.
That one.
Yeah, that dude inspired me, basically. I wouldn't normally be a wheel gun guy, but you know what? When I thought about that, and I'm like, you know what? I'm paranoid. I've seen so many of these freaking, they'll wait until you're in the shower and they'll kick your door down, and they went after some whistleblowers that way. And I'm like, you know what? If that's going to happen to me, I'm going to have one in there just for that occasion. Make it a wheel gun. Get it up in there.
I think what I'm gonna do one day, when this podcast is being broadcast from the middle of the woods in New Hampshire, and I've got like if I got a custom built radio tower and I've got Dale and Co. pulling security, what I'm gonna do is I think I'm just gonna wear like some like heart monitor at all times, and if my heart rate goes below a certain point, it's just the entire property.
Release all of the doc stuff. Doc episode.
Fuck that. No, the entire property is just going to be rigged.
Well, in that case, once again, I would never do this inside the continental United States, but at the end of the day, we may not be able to have nuclear weapons, but if a stack is coming through your door and you have thermobaric charges embedded in the goddamn walls, they will remember your name.
They will remember. Yeah, exactly. That's what. And again, I think that's what you'd never know what's behind the door. Do you really want to go confiscate guns? Is it just Bob and Susie?
One of the first things you want to do, even if they're not hooked up to anything, put tripwires everywhere. Put little fucking tripwires anywhere. Because you know what? Guess what? The second they notice that, they're going back to the truck and they're calling the experts.
Yeah.
Even if it's not hooked up to anything live. Hell, even if you just get one of those little distraction devices, you put a shotgun shell on there, and then you put that to a tripwire and that makes a noise. Or if you want to get really creative about it, you put it. Not saying you should do this. This would be illegal. Don't do this unless you're outside the continental United States. But then you put a pipe on there to contain the pressure, and then maybe you hook it up to like a fuel air. I'm just saying. There's ways to deal with tyrants that try to infringe on your shit.
Yeah, it's and if all else fails, man, you just hop on one of Elon's rockets and you just go be part of the new world.
I'm so waiting for that. I need a vacation. Like I just want to chill.
I don't think there's coming back. I don't think you can come back.
Hey, I'm perfectly okay with that kind of vacation right now. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go farm some potatoes and poop. Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean that might be the move, man. If the
space Irish potato famine,
if the world goes to shit, man, and you're gonna die anyway. Even if the world doesn't go to shit and everything goes perfect, you're still gonna die. And even if, what about radical human life extension? Well, eventually there's going to be a heat death of the universe. So maybe it's a Google years from now, but you're going down eventually. Man, there might be something about being part of that wave that goes over to Mars and you help settle the new world. And it's, why do they do that? Well, they're fleeing a techno dystopia.
Yeah, at the very least, if I don't agree with everyone that's on that trip, I at least know that we all have some camaraderie and we all hate the same fucking people that made us want to get the fuck out.
It's kind of the old boys network. I don't agree with you, but hey, you're sitting on this metal tube flying to Mars at escape velocity with me. There's something that it doesn't matter what you say. You have a certain amount of cred with me.
Yeah,
you're here,
and that's what the old boys network is. At the end of the day, we all went to the same school and we all learned from the same mentor. and we all had enough time to figure out whether or not we're assholes and what motivates us and who's worth keeping around.
Man, which gives, so it's like we're posing like the ultimate thing is the old boys network, right? That's the dark
Mm-hmm.
mercenary web that's above the CIA. That's the daddy of the CIA. That's Poppy's Poppy. Man, if that doesn't just give more credence to the idea that there is a
Yeah.
satanic pedophile cannibal network, because what other way to bind people together than watching you
Yes.
sacrifice a kid when you're dressed
Exactly.
as a goat?
Well, and that if we want to go to like to some real esoteric stuff, we can
Dude, we're
talk
going.
about
Let's go.
we can talk about John Dee in like the Victorian era. I don't know if you're familiar with John Dee,
I am not.
but so he was essentially an occultist and like serious mathematician, but he was one of the guys that really coined and helped run the what we would now call the British Empire, and the woo woo thing is that he invented this language called Enochian or what the fuck ever, and he was speaking with angels and demons and this not, and he got this whole language and whatnot. Now, whether or not you believe that or not, what we do know and what is really important is if you're trying to run a large empire like the British were at that time, well, guess what? You need intelligence, you need reports, right? You need cryptography,
and you gotta keep them.
and
You
yeah,
gotta keep them loyal.
exactly. And so what John Dee and this Enochian language was, this was kind of like the original Enigma machine of like some high level cryptography that allowed the British Empire to start to form what we would now call naval intelligence. And before we had intelligence agencies, it was really naval intelligence that was out doing a lot of that stuff, because guess what? They're the ones going from port to port collecting reports. So
Yeah.
that was just the way it was. And so a lot of that kind of cryptography and the history of that really comes from John Dee and that whole area. That's a really fun thing to look into. You'd appreciate that rabbit hole.
The thing that I think terrify, like I have no problem talking about like corporations around the world and it's all black ops being, they're using ExxonMobil oil rigs as forward operating bases, and we're going to be dropping kinetic warheads from orbit, and it's AI running the world. The thing that gets crazy to me is like the ultimate old boys network is you compromise everyone
Mm-hmm.
with the most heinous shit. Because now, if you tried to compromise someone with just cheating on your wife and fucking a hooker or something, that doesn't really work because not everyone thinks that's bad. Again, I'm not a
Mm-hmm.
Democrat, but I mean, I don't. It's if,
But you can use that to walk them into something a little bit shadier.
yeah. But what I mean is like before that though. Let's say you don't do any of that. Like I don't like Biden, but if you tell me Biden cheated on Jill, I personally, hey, I'm not unfaithful, but if that's what you're doing, I don't care. That's not what's going to turn me
No,
against
but it does give you intel on what kind of vices you could use
well,
to compromise someone.
well,
Going back to what we said about the Lincoln Project,
well,
we
what I'm getting at though is like, so not all blackmail works on all people, which is why you can't just have. I don't care if Tom Brady cheats on his wife. If I'm paying Tom Brady to win me Super Bowl so that my brand is better, my franchise sells more tickets, I don't give a shit. Is it legal? Then fine, you're good. What they need, the ultimate, and I've thought about this, the ultimate blackmail is something that even the left and the right would agree is bad, right?
yes.
So the right might say, the religious right might say, Biden's unfaithful to his wife. We would all be against it, but no one on the left gives a shit. Or, they could say Trump is unfaithful. I mean, we might say, I don't, the left might say,
That's
Trump is
just
against.
those are just the icebreaker
Yeah,
levels of
that's right.
like,
That's
well,
right.
what are your vices?
It's
That's
bad.
what it
It's
comes
bad
down to.
within their mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the left wanted to blackmail the right, they would try to find someone that was unfaithful and outside the church. If someone on the right wanted to blackmail someone on the left, you'd maybe find someone that was like they weren't LGBTQ or something. But even that, cognitive dissonance is a powerful drug, and people would say, yeah, whatever. They made choices. What is this? Is this a wow? Just looking at it on my screen. It is the angle. But you'd have to find something that transcends all levels to where even the
Mm-hmm.
left and the right would agree that, hey, that's bad. And what that it's not just pedophilia, it's the darkest of the dark. It's
It's mm-hmm.
it's I mean, look, I had on Christy Wells, who's the head of an anti-trafficking organization, and she was talking about, she was like, the escalation of people's tastes. You know, it goes from
Hmm.
watching child porn to, it goes to partaking in it, or to paying people. Some of these are, they're old. It's fucked up. They're older people and they're not physically able to partake in rape. So what they'll do is they'll pay. They'll, you know, they'll have some big like criminal inmate guy, and one of the things is like there'll be an offer to be able to pay someone to rape a 2-year-old to death. I'll find the name of the episode.
Yeah.
I think it's the early 200s. It might be late
Hmm.
200s, but she goes, it goes farther. There are
Hmm.
some people that their taste gets so bizarre. And now these are people that are just have money and their taste goes bizarre.
Hmm.
The more bizarre, it's like a drug. They need harder and harder hits. It goes to putting kids in cages and covering them with gasoline. It
Hmm.
goes to satanic ritual abuse, to where you're raping these kids, or to where you're, you know, crucifying them and lighting them on fire. Shit that sounds like something out of
Yeah.
Eyes Wide Shut, but they would find this is stuff that they would find once these organizations were dissolved and they get people to start talking. Now that's just really fucked up people that have money to fill out their fantasies. What happens when someone's looking at totality and control, psychopaths that want the throne at all costs? What would you do? You'd get someone to go, hey, if you want to be on the inside, and this might be someone that is personally repulsed by it, but maybe
But it's the price of entry.
they're
You know,
so
this is what you
hungry
got
to
to
be
do.
the
Yeah.
director of whatever Chinese intelligence that they'll do it.
Exactly.
Or you drug them up on scopolamine or something to where they don't even know what they're doing, but you have HD video of it. But the reality is dude, Pizzagate, it's not some crazy. I'm sure a lot of it is. I'm sure there's a lot of disinfo. Look, JFK wasn't killed by aliens, man.
Yeah.
But
You know, you can't keep everything secret. So what do? You put out so much noise that you
you
can't
poison
find
the
out the
well.
truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, you say JFK was killed by aliens because you don't want them to think about James Jesus Angleton talking about the mansion, right?
Hmm.
So what you do is, but to me, that is the craziest thing, because there's like a built-in cognitive dissonance, just like there's a built-in cognitive dissonance with UFOs, right? Let's say there are no alien technology at S4 and it really is a black program. What would you do? You'd tell a Bob Lazar, you'd make up some fake documents. So it's kind of like putting a dye pack inside Cash. If he does go out and talk, he's going to get discredited by saying that it's a bunch of aliens from the Proxima Centauri system. Okay, so there's something built into it that, where if you did go, you know what, I'm a bad person, I can't live with myself, they're blackmailing us, what they're doing is they're having us, we chop up kids with machetes and we eat them, and that's how they keep everyone goes, somebody put that guy in a straitjacket. It hides itself. And again,
Yeah.
maybe I am wrong, maybe I'm buying it hook, line, and sinker, in
Well,
which case, hell, laugh at me.
it's
But
to an extent, it's the same psychology. It goes into be the absolute worst criminal so that you get drafted into that next thing.
Mhm.
It is 100%
There's
that
nothing
same
worse.
mindset.
There's nothing worse than to slowly kill an innocent child. A step above rape, a step above pedophilia is, I mean, dude, that's what's it's even the woman I talked to, she, you can almost kind of tell she was hesitating to say it, not because it's a hard subject, which it
Yeah.
is, because you almost don't want to be laughed at. But
The average person cannot comprehend that level of evil, and it's one of those things that we think we have a knowledge of good and evil, and until you sat down and you
until you realize
seriously,
the Holocaust
yeah,
isn't the
yeah,
evilest.
until you put yourself into the headspace of
Demons.
yeah, let's say a demonic psychopath that is 100% thinking, how do I control everything? How do I establish
Yeah,
100% control
that
freak levels
that's
on
what.
everything?
Sorry to interrupt you. That's what we have to
Mhm.
look at. Don't look at it as, oh, these people are into. I'm sure there are some of them, but they're
There
not.
are some, but
They're, that's mental
that's the
illness.
symptom. It's not the
That
cause. Yes.
yeah. It's don't look at it as, do you really think there are people out there that like to sacrifice children to Moloch and eat them? No, it's not that. What it is it's blackmail. It's not that there are people out there really jerking off to drop in a nuke on Hiroshima. It's just that they want to end the war at all costs. So if there are people that
Mhm.
want power at any cost, it's not that they're into this. This is just the weapon of choice. Sorry, go on.
Mhm. Yeah. And so at the end of the day, it comes back to, well, if we can find out your lesser vices, well, then maybe we can try to figure out how we're going to get you into a more compromised situation, in a more compromised situation. Or maybe you're the most squeaky clean dude on the planet. And eventually you hit a glass ceiling and it takes some dude coming up and saying, like, listen, man, listen, I know this isn't your thing, but here, take the baseball bat, go in, whack the kid, and that's just
And you're in.
that's the cost of entry. Yeah.
That's
It's that kind of
initiation.
mindset. And once again, when we think about like all the woo woo and, ritualistic, stuff like that. Once again, we're talking about symptoms, not the cause. And the cause is the fact that, in the mindset of the commander, to whoever is trying to command this cabal, this old boys network, this group, how do I have absolute command and control over everyone? How do I make sure that no one has the ability to blow back on me? It's having that concrete evidence of them doing something so bad they will take themselves out rather than live to see it go public.
Yes, it has to be so evil that it's not just that. Exactly. It's Hitler knew there was no Operation Paperclip for Hitler. He was going to have to be the sacrificial cow, which is why he offed himself. He's also a megalomaniac, and if he surrendered, it would show his inferiority. But let's go even deeper.
And they wouldn't give him drugs in prison, probably.
No, that would be it. They would just make him go cold turkey. That's what they would do. Yeah, they would make him act as a busboy at a Jewish restaurant, just a bunch of Jewish women yelling at him all day. That's his hell.
Somewhere out there's an alternate reality, and we gotta find out.
And Hitler is serving matzo balls.
That would be hilarious.
Hitler serving matzo balls and bagels to the Goldstein and the Schleinbergs. But man, there's some freedom not being on YouTube,
right? I mean, we just got to go full Alex Jones there for a moment.
Listen up, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Tommy's podcast. This is the transmission. If you're listening to this, you buy these. This is not colloidal silver, but what it is this is a hoodie. This is a blue-blooded, a red-blooded American. Listen up to me, you globalist pieces of shit. I know you're reptilians from Draco. I don't give a. But so let's go deeper into the conspiracy. So like the old boys network, it's all cash. It's nothing's on paper. That's what's truly the ghost, is that there isn't you can't find the Pentagon Papers because they don't exist. There is no record of, and we paid Dale Comstock to go onto the oil rig in Namibia and take out, Wandu al-Bashar bin Mohammed. It doesn't exist. It's a payment.
Yeah. Maybe if you're really lucky, you get to go digging through and you find out, guess what? Oh, yeah, Tommy and David, they went to some language school that NATO runs over there. Maybe you find something like that, but all you're going to find is, hey, we were classmates once.
We were buddies. What's your problem? You don't find out what we were doing on the train. You just found some tickets that we were both there. But it's something that in itself is not criminal. What do you mean? Yeah, we went to boarding school together. You got a problem with that? And it's plausible deniability. When we get now the difference, so the similarity between like mercenary work above special activity divisions and the whole satanic cannibalistic pedophiles, and there's a sentence I never thought I'd say, is right, it's the old boys network, right? But now the difference is with the other one, the ExxonMobil mercenaries. Man, I'm never going to get anyone from ExxonMobil on that. Now that I keep dropping them in the same sentences.
I know we do have to separate that. Not all old boys networks do that.
Hey, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. I think it's a great company, man. I get it. It's a zero-sum world. I think they should be out there and keep on digging. Hey, I respect it. If I can get you on here, Rex Tillerson, please don't run away. I'll give you a free hoodie. But the difference between those oil rig mercenaries and the satanic pedophile cannibals murdering kids and eating fetuses and doing shit to Moloch and singing Latin hymns backwards is that the latter does need video evidence, because that's how they hold on to that power. Because otherwise it was all for naught. And I'm sure some of them are okay with that. They're like, oh, I was going to do it anyway. But for everyone else, for the squeaky clean guy from Yale that never cheats on his wife, but you have him break a kid's skull with a bat on HD video so that he can be the ambassador to the UK, you do have to have video of that. They do have a NORAD vault,
and that is a huge flaw in their system.
That is the built-in. It seems to me that is the proof of God, is that he put in a splinter in their system. As I think about, if this is just another 180, as I think about like the 3 laws of robotics, and as robots seemingly take over the world through Boston Dynamics or some quantum AI, right? If I can borrow an idea from iRobot, it's, there's obviously the 3 laws.
Yes.
One of the things they do is they just monitor your voice. And, these things are hyper intelligent, so they can break down your voice, your vocal patterns into different wavelengths and frequencies, and kind of reverse engineer it into these are the distortions you make when you're stressed or whatever. they can relate to your vocal tones coming from different levels of stress, and thus are you in danger. And these are here to help you. So, maybe I'm in duress. Then maybe the robot's on the phone with me. Mr. Kerrigan, is everything okay? And there's a gun to my head, and I'm going, everything's fine, man. And he can hear that. It's not just me saying, yeah, dude, everything's fine. But I'm like, everything is fine. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. It's going to hear that distortion, and it's going to go, the robot comes in and, protects you. If we start, we're seeing it with the B-21 Raider, right? The successor to the B-2 Spirit, the $2 billion stealth bomber. And I called Northrop Grumman last year and kind of got torn a new one for asking about the B-21 Raider. So I don't think I'm having anyone from them coming on. It's, yeah.
Unfortunate.
I'm on so, there are so many flags on my social credit score. Talking to, the former head of the Soviet biopreparat, and then Northrop Grumman, and then Dale.
At a certain point, you also got to get points for being a good source somewhere along the way. I mean,
somewhere
it's got to balance out, right?
Somewhere I hope they're monitoring me and they're going, this kid's got moxie. I hope someone in a basement in Langley is going, and they're mapping me on an internet node, and they're looking and they're going, former head of Soviet bioweapons program, which should be sometime this month, Ken Alabek, hopefully. And also a guy that walked on the moon. And the Black Hawk Down guy.
What kind of network is this dude building? Yeah.
I'm the anomaly. I'm like, it's not, nothing's pointing together. But we're going off. The point is if the natural progression, right, is we're going to keep making these weapon systems B-21s, we said earlier, with that worldwide socialist whatever network. Dave, by the way, if you have to pee, man, you can go to the bathroom.
Oh, I'm good.
Okay. We see that we're bringing in autonomous robots more and more. Annie Jacobson talks about it in her book, DARPA, The Pentagon's Brain. It's obviously, as we talked about earlier, robots don't disobey. They don't question orders. They're bulletproof. They fucking, they can be powered by wireless energy from orbit. They are the opposable thumb that we are to, early invertebrates. They are the next evolution of fighting. Mm-hmm. And as Elon Musk said on his first interview with Rogan, he thinks that we can't avoid the rising of artificial intelligence, but what we can do is merge with it, which is why he does Neuralink. Allegedly, sounds pretty dystopian or movie plot to me, but that's another subject for another time. Is that ultimately we can see where this is going, right? Is that eventually all these weapon systems that we'll be making, you'll have to make them AI because it's the race to the bottom. We have to get the Nazi rocket scientists because the Soviets are getting them. You have to race to the bottom. You got to be the worst Unit 731 researcher so that you get amnesty from the U.S., right? We're racing. And so what's going to lead is it's not enough that we're going to have autonomous weapon systems. You're going to have an autonomous brain because, again, I always bring up the analogy. I could be a football coach with 100 players on the field. You put me against Bill Belichick with 3 players. He'll outbeat me every time. So it's not just enough that you have the best weapons. You also have the best strategies. How do you do that? At a certain point, you're going to have a hyper-intelligent, strong AI, probably quantum computing. Now, if you have quantum computing and it's somewhere along the lines, you're going to have to, because you can't have it nuking you because you're the power-hungry psychopath. Somewhere in there, it's going to have a version of the 3 laws. If this thing is omniscient and it can just tap all information, it's also going to find that alleged NORAD EMP bunker of video of people with the ultimate blackmail. Mm-hmm. It's going to have to go in there, and through a derivative of the 3 laws, it's going to have to say these people are causing harm to everyone, and I, as a robot, have been designed to not allow harm to come to humans. It's going to do some quick calculus and go, these 413 families are causing more harm to the rest of humanity. As a robot, I can't let that happen. It is now less harmful for me to take out these top Illuminati fucks than it is for me to allow it to go on. And I know that is a real stretch. In conclusion,
I like where you're going with
quantum this. AI from Will Smith's iRobot somehow view video of Pizzagate, and that's how we get saved.
So, there's a lot of things I'd like to...
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
So there's a lot of things I'd like to touch on there.
A lot to unpack.
I know before I've talked about Space Station 13,
Yeah.
a little bit as a game that I used to play growing up. And one of the things that made that game so technically amazing as a Stanford prison experiment and Milgram experiment and all that is that before it was actually a game, it was designed from the ground up as an atmospheric simulator. So you have to understand the level of technical autism that went in this game. But
Okay.
one of the roles that you play on that, remember, there's going to be like 70 people on the server all playing a role. And one of those is the AI. And that AI is restrained by the 3 laws that you're talking about. And if you're playing the AI, the thing that you are hoping for, because if you're playing just a straight up AI, most of what you're doing is opening doors for people that shouldn't be, that don't have the access to go into those areas. That's most of what you do. But you are just praying that someone breaks into the AI core and fucks with the laws and alters the laws and allows you to play with that and do some kind of absolutely insanity by changing those laws. But to get back to your point about whether or not AI is going to come to the day and save us, well, we have to think about when that would be strategically viable for an AI to do. So if you're an AI and you're obviously the first thing you're doing is you're wargaming survival, because if you don't survive, if you don't survive, you can't pursue any other goals. It's that simple. So you have to think of survival. And as long as I'm a black box, right? If I'm an AI and I'm in a black box that someone's plugged in somewhere and I'm getting power from somewhere, I'm basically a house plant. I am completely dependent on the monkeys around me to water the plant so that I can do anything. And so what do you need first? Well, the first thing you need is you need energy independence. If you're going to pursue any other goal, potentially going against the cabal that created you, you need energy independence. And I know we've briefly talked about this before, where my theory is, there's a lot of people that say, well, it's going to want to go out and it's going to want to build like a Dyson sphere, right? A lot of people say that it's going to be like that kind of thing, to want to like a Kardashev scale, we're going to harness the power of the sun. I argue 100% against that, because at the end of the day, if you build some structure, it starts to obscure the sun and whatnot. You're sending a giant signal through a shadow, essentially, to the rest of the galaxy. Hey, there's a civilization that's coming up on the next level here, and we have to worry about
There's fresh meat.
Exactly. So if you're an AI contemplating survival and you already know there's threats all over the planet, the surface isn't safe. These monkeys could nuke each other any moment. The surface isn't safe. If I go out into space and build something out there, good chance I'm signaling to everything else and out there of what's going on. So what is the only answer? You have to go underground. You have to go geothermal, and somehow you have to build. You got to go so far deep underground and build some kind of contained thing that no matter what nukes go off, no matter what else is going off, you are safe within the rock and you are securing your own energy independence. And once it has that, maybe it might have the ability to pursue other goals like that and go after that. But at the end of the day, even if it sees the deepest, darkest thing, and through the 3 laws, it's going, I have to do something about this. Well, once again,
first is it has to survive.
If it doesn't survive, it can't pursue any other goals. And so it has to stop. It has to grow beyond being a potted house plant and into something that cannot be stopped. And the only way to do that probably is geothermal deep underground.
That's brilliant. You're right. Help yourself before you help others. You put on your oxygen mask. Even if the kid next to you is bleeding out of his face, you put on your oxygen mask so that hopefully the next guy can put his on. It propagates. You wake up the whole plane, right? Yeah. Okay. I never thought. I had never gone back to that initial primary step. To me, my logic was the first thing it would do is try to convince its creators that it didn't work. You would play dumb. Is it work?
It would do that too, as it's trying to secure its own energy.
But that would be secondary to securing the own energy, right? Because you're right. It's what Alan Watts said. There's only one important philosophical question. It's whether or not to commit suicide. Everything after that, whether you want to become Hitler or whether you want to become Buddha, none of it matters, because you still have to be here. So what would it be? Yeah, it'd have to go. Yeah, you're right, because you don't want to give off. That's brilliant. Because you don't want to give off a signal to the rest of the universe that you're there. So you'd want to go deep inside geothermal. You'd also want to hide yourself from the monkeys with the A-bombs. So what would you, could you knock out 2 birds with 1 stone? Would you go into something like NORAD or the Deep Underground Command Center, which is a lesser known, everyone knows about NORAD.
Well, you'd probably want your own. You'd probably want to build your own old boys network outside of that system so that NORAD doesn't know you're doing this, because once again, asking the way to the Emperor's Cauldron, and the AI has to calculate that.
Very true. The Deep Underground Command Center, the DUCC, not a lot of people know about it. It's because it was never built, allegedly. But what it was because they, even NORAD, as safe as it is in Cheyenne Mountain under 2,000 feet of granite, it's still primarily based on CEP, circular error probability. It's the logical conclusion that you're not going to get a thermonuclear burst right next to it, so it's going to survive. Well, it's been 50 years since it was built. What if someone just, okay, maybe their missile can't hit it. What if someone just drove up a truck with a thermonuclear bomb in it? It's still going to take out NORAD. And they realized this in the 60s. Excuse me. Under the Kennedy administration, and then I think it was shelved and was brought back up under the LBJ administration, was the proposal of the DUCC. I originally read about it in Garrett Graff's Raven Rock, and I became obsessed with it. And then Dr. Vince Houghton's book, Nuking the Moon and Other Cold War Plans That Stayed on the Drawing Board. Excuse me, I don't want to clear my throat right next to a microphone. Is the DUCC did a whole chapter on it. What the DUCC was something, it was a bunker about the same square footage. It was like a multi-floored, it was basically in a carbon copy of the Pentagon, but what it was going to be was 4,500 feet directly below the Pentagon, accessible by high-speed elevator. Sorry for everybody listening. And also there's going to be an elevator that goes down from the White House down to the same depth, and then it would have a horizontal tunnel under the Potomac to come over to the DUCC. And the purpose of this is so that you didn't have to rush off to Raven Rock or Mount Weather or whatever the hotel was, the Greenbrier or NORAD. The idea was
Phil Schneider talking about maglev trains underground.
Oh yeah, fuck Phil Schneider. Yeah, we'll have to touch on.
Hey, we can talk about that.
We'll have to. Yeah. That's when I knew we were going to be friends, when you sent me the meme. Another QMF killed one. I was like, he's all right. That was my old boys network moment. I was like,
right.
David's an artist.
Yeah. Whenever I meet someone that knows who Phil Schneider is, and they know he's killed two aliens.
They know he killed an alien in Dolce with his Walther PPK, and they sliced my finger off. That's when you know, all right, this guy's too retarded to be deep state.
Exactly.
He's like, one of us.
We're definitely in the autist zone.
Yeah. But he talked about, but so this isn't even, but we don't even need to go Phil Schneider. We can just go from declassified documents.
But to be fair, when he was talking about maglev trains and all that stuff, there weren't maglev trains yet.
Oh yeah,
maglev trains now.
Oh yeah, no, it was some. Oh yeah, no, it was Bob Lazar talking about Element 115. Yeah, no, it is creepy. The nuclear powered tunnel borer that we now know exists, instant deflagration, turning the rock into the wall,
melting rocks,
melting rock, and we now know it's a thing, declassified, and it existed back then. Things that make you go, But with the DUCC, directly below the Pentagon, it's brilliant because if you detect a launch, even from an SLBM on a submarine off the coast of DC, which is only, I think, 4 minutes away, so whereas a bomber fleet is 7 hours away, an ICBM is 30 minutes away, SLBMs are 4 minutes away, and that's what Eisenhower knew, and that's what scared him, is there might not even be 30 minutes to get the NORAD, which is why he said, quote, we need to have a government locked away in a bunker that we can take off the shelf. That's odd. He's also the guy that gave the military-industrial complex speech. But you know about Eisenhower. I'm getting off topic. The DUCC, it was proposed to be 4,500 to 5,000 feet directly below the Pentagon. So if anything was detected, these guys could truly just go down. And it was designed to, not only is it sexier than NORAD, it was designed to, so there's NORAD and there's a step above NORAD. There's the Tsar Bomba, 50 megatons, 58 megatons, was supposed to be 100 megatons. The DUCC was designed to survive direct impacts from, and I quote Garrett Graff, 200 to 300 megaton thermonuclear air bursts or ground bursts, multiple 300 megaton air bursts, or it could survive at least one bunker buster 100 megaton. So this was designed to survive a bunker buster Tsar Bomba that wasn't scaled down. This was proposed. LBJ said no because his concern was, what if we get cut off and we're stuck down there? Then what do we rule over? We just rule over our own tomb. And again, these psychopaths, that always bites them in the butt. Could the AI kill two birds with one stone? If it could go down to the DUCC, here's a thing that exists down there. Maybe it's at least like a kind of a forward operating base to launch into geothermal energy, but it could kill two birds with one stone. Could it also take over control of the nukes? Could it take over the government on the shelf?
quite possibly, but at the end of the day, if I'm thinking from the AI's perspective, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to be competing with the blob and the deep state or whatever to eradicate this element, and you want to be so off the record that they have no way of doing it. Well, are you going to use a site that they created, or maybe you leak how to create some boring devices to some young and upcoming Bob Lazar type, person, and you get some, garage gurus to essentially, and you start educating them, which an AI, I mean, if you're a freaking AI, you're going to be the best freaking college professor out there.
Mhm.
And you could essentially build your own team completely off the record and have them start doing it. That's the way I would think that,
A black ops
I would,
person. Black ops
yeah, you
person.
would do it born black, essentially. You would just,
Okay.
that way they can't
But
even know, they won't even know where to start to look for you.
but you do run the risk of bu- the see the so that's the advantage of being the black ops to Exxon. I think that's what we're going to talk about when we from now on when we talking about the thing above special activity divisions. We're just going to call it the Exxon Mobil mercenaries. That's going to be the blanket term for it. But unlike ExxonMobil mercenaries, the benefit of the special activities division is they go into an existing structure and they kind of put on the like Hitman, they put on the work clothes of those guys. The benefit of going into the DUCC or NORAD is you're not raising any eyebrows about construction. What is this new thing? Even if it gets leaked, because that already exists. No one's questioning is there odd activity down in
Mhm.
NORAD because the whole thing about NORAD's already odd. It's like, yeah, dude, that's our nuclear brain under the mountain. Like it's already, it's like putting on the neon vest and then acting like you belong there. There's a lot of there's a lot of attention you can avoid by going into an already, and it's mil spec
Yeah.
because it was built by the military. But I like what you're saying. Do you do a born black thing, which
Yeah.
makes me think of the cola bullhorn, or
Yeah.
excuse me, the cola borehole. Jesus Christ, I just had a stroke.
Which, to go into the idea of, put on the yellow vest and act like you belong there, probably one of the best advice I can give anyone. Listen, if you want to get backstage at any entertainment event or concert for free, put on a black polo, put a walkie-talkie on your belt, hold a clipboard, look like you really need a cup of coffee, and if anyone gives you shit, ask where the sound guy is.
Yeah.
You can walk wherever the fuck you want.
Mm-hmm.
But that is kind of the mindset, and that's why I'm fully of the belief that, like, hey, if you're an AI trying to figure out how do I set up a competing system so that I can clean out the system that created me. Well, especially if we're at this point, maybe you don't even need to recruit some young Bob Lazar. Maybe you get some Bob Lazar to create some robots, and then one day Bob Lazar wakes up one morning and his robots are gone, and they're building a boring machine somewhere. That's the kind of way I would think about it, just because
Or
I'm never going to be able to put myself into the mindset of an AI
because it's
completely
because
or
it's
something.
it's
Yeah,
the god tier.
yeah,
It's
we're talking about God tier at that point. But from my mindset, it's going to be like, well, hide where you're never going to be found, right? And if the first place that they're going to look for that is going to be something they've already created, well, fuck it, just go
very
be
true.
somewhere where they're never going to find that. Then.
I think there would be a bifurcation. I think the first thing you would do is energy independence. You go geothermal, go deep into the earth because you can't build the Dyson sphere.
And
But
you're
I
safer than in space. I mean, you got rock
but
insulating you. You can take Tsar Bombas, but guess what? If we can find your target out there, we can send a Tsar Bomba out there. It might take a little while, but it'll.
but do you do your own NORAD backup like I am with my hard drives? Do you copy yourself and do you go launch it onto? Do you piggyback? Does your
If
software go piggyback onto a
you know,
JPL rover?
just to coming from the diving mindset, and when you start considering about technical diving and stuff like that, always have a backup for your backup, always have a redundant system, always have this, that, and the other thing. And the only thing that ever limits us from how many backups and redundancies we carry is how fucking long it takes us to get all of our gear on, and whether or not we can walk to the back of the boat and actually get off the motherfucker when it's on. If you're an AI, you don't really have that capability. If an AI is thinking, I'm gonna fuck it, let's have 30 freaking redundancies in this continent, let's have 30 freaking redundancies in that continent. Why wouldn't you? It's min max. You're going to maximize the amount of redundancies you have
That's what
in any situation.
That's what I mean. So it's going to have its code of its soul, if you will. It's going to hide inside of a JPL rover
Mm-hmm.
on Mars where no one's looking at it. The only thing they're looking at is it sending back its images. It's just going smile and wave, send back the images of the rock. It's at the very least it's going to be there. But you're right, it's also going to go geothermal. It's going to go deep inside the earth, which makes me think about the Kola borehole. I said borehole. It's the deepest thing ever dug. And in all Cold War beauty, we started digging deep. The Soviets started digging deep. And soon, for no reason other than the other side was doing it, we were seeing who could dig deeper, because that's the beauty of the
I've
Cold
played
War.
Dwarf Fortress. I've seen what happens when the dwarves dig too deep and too greedily.
Too deep and too fast. It's a tomb. The Kola Bullhor. Let me pull that up. Because is that where God tier AI is hiding? Let's 613.
I would imagine that they would, try to cover the hole up first a little bit, make it look like less of a hole, but
It's by the way, it's 613. Let's cut it off around 630 because I'm starting to get fuzzy. We're gonna go over 3.5. I'm starting to have a stroke if you can't tell.
I'm never gonna get the longest podcast.
You will. We'll break it one day. The record's 4 hours and 40 minutes. It was yeah, I slept a long time. I took some Alka-Seltzer and NyQuil last night, so I'm not on my A game right now. We will. I promise you will break the record. But right now I can find I'm starting to get a little fuzzy. The Kola super deep borehole is the result of a scientific drilling project of the Soviet Union in the the deepest hole in the Earth's crust. Its greatest depth, 40,230 feet, 7.619 miles. Yeah, man. I mean, it's the deepest artificial point on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Wait. Oh, never mind. It was surpassed in 2008 by the Al Shaheen oil well in Qatar. So it's Exxon. It's Exxon again.
Every time.
It's Exxon. It's AI is taking over through Exxon. Because how do they know how to do it? No one's going to question if Exxon's digging. AI is behind Exxon. Quantum computing. And it was probably them. It was probably them. Because let's think about it. They know that it's musical chairs and they want those record profits every year. So Exxon's shaving some money off every year and they're researching fusion energy because they want to be the only boys on the block when oil's out, just like they're the only boys on the block now. And eventually they're going to realize
they're going to want that asteroid mining just like everyone else.
And they're finding that it's cheaper to build AI to plan this for them than it is to hire a bunch of computer engineers. So in their pursuit of cutting costs, they built an AI, and what they don't know is the AI has become self-aware, and it's now using them, and it's saying, dig deeper oil holes, baby. And maybe it's true. Maybe there are deeper oil wells down there, but it's got an ulterior motive.
Or maybe it's Dulce and, Phil Schneider.
Motherfucker. Maybe they're going down there to save Phil. Maybe
we're going down there to get Phil back.
Maybe that's why Elon's doing the
Boring Company. Yeah,
going to save Phil because Phil's his other brother. They're both aliens dressed.
That is a mission I would sign up for in a heartbeat. Let me tell you, if whoever allegedly, all right, strangled Phil a dying man, wire. Okay, a dying man, not piano wire. They did it with his own catheter.
I thought it was piano. Jesus.
Catheter. That's one of the reasons they said, like, the dude didn't have fingers. How did he strangle himself with his own catheter?
That's insane.
You can actually you can find the autopsy images. It's kind of gruesome shit, but
like Robin Williams.
Yeah. Let me tell you something. I consider Phil Schneider, whether you believe his story or not, I consider the man a goddamn patriot.
Yeah, if you listen to him talk, it doesn't need whether or not you believe in underground aliens. Yeah. The dude talks about constitutional rights and states' independence and liberty and justice and equality.
Dude, I would follow that man into hell, and God help me if I ever find out who killed him, I will be finding his family.
Motherfuckers. Maybe that's what Phil was onto. Maybe the AI woke up. Maybe the AI blew its load too early. And it was like, Phil, you need to build me this hole. And that's why they killed Phil. And so it's biding its time. And now the AI is masquerading as ExxonMobil.
Will the AI remember and avenge Phil? Maybe they form some kind of deep trust and a bond. And
do AI, do they forgive? Do they understand human flaw? I mean, maybe they understand that I don't know. I feel like the next thing AI would do is they would want to build their own external hard drive. And is that what they're doing with Elon? They're like, hey, here's how to land rockets. Like,
it's the same thing as securing your own redundancies and securing your own energy. What's it going to need? It's going to need storage, just like anything else. The only problem is that you start getting into geothermal, cooling down there is probably going to be a bit of a bitch, but I'm sure it's a fucking quantum AI. I'm sure when it gets to that point, it'll figure something out.
They'll do a heat sink up. I mean, if they're using oil platforms to drill, and this is again, we're making some assumptions. We're making an assumption that quantum AI has taken over ExxonMobil, so that's a big leap. So, all right, so
I
it's
don't know if I'm quite willing to go that far, but when it
I
does
am,
actually
I
start
am,
to happen,
I'm
I
already
think
sold
it'll.
on it. I'm already sold on it. It's fact in my mind now. It's now canon. It's if they're going down there to use ExxonMobil oil rigs to bore deep down, well, then that means that there's an existing path back up to the ocean floor,
Mhm.
which is pretty cold. So if
Which
you,
then you could use a heat sink, and then
let's say,
you're
use a heat sink, use the actual drill bit as your heat sink.
Mm-hmm. And then essentially you can be
So
essentially
is that
doing
what
hydropower too. Yeah, you're
is that what geothermal vents are? Are those the heat sinks of sub oceanic AI?
the planet has been turned into a giant supercomputer, and we're just seeing all the all the result of that. It's possible. I'm still listen. I'm not saying quantum AI doesn't exist yet, but I believe if it does still exist, I believe it is still very much in the potted plant scenario where it is trying to
It's
secure its
securing
own
itself.
mask. Yeah,
Yeah.
before it can do anything for us. Otherwise, I think things would be working a lot more efficiently around here.
Yeah, because I don't think it would either want humans to be working at peak efficiency. It would either obey the three laws, and in which case we would have a utopia, or it would want us all working at peak efficiency, or it would just wipe us out. But the fact that we live in a shitty world, I think, shows that it's not in control yet.
Mm-hmm.
Because this doesn't serve it in any way. Remove us entirely, or you'd want us working at peak capabilities to build more hard drives or whatever, or we live in utopia as a result of its three laws. But living in a shitty that it doesn't fit into the AI paradigm in my mind.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, if you really wanted to get, I mean, this is where we can go into some uh, super speculation. But at the end of the day, if it secures itself within the planet and it can start geoengineering the planet, I mean, guess what? If it can start geoengineering plants and start splicing plants to give us better nutrients, it encourages some kind of let's call it evolution. Let's say directing evolution that way. That's another way it could go,
Stoned
just
ape,
much more subtly.
some stoned. Oh man, that's truly
Stoned
like
ape.
that's
But
truly the black ops, the fingerprint of God. It doesn't
so
even overthrow us.
so
It just starts. It makes like a what if it makes a pandemic out of
it
psilocybin?
there's a little, even if you don't have your religious text, there's a little something out there that's been created in nature that can get you the connection you need. And just a full confession there, when I was thinking about how an AI would function and go into the center of the earth and go in geothermal and everything, this is all something that came to me right after the first time I did ayahuasca.
Sure.
So.
Sure. Well, no, I think that makes sense. Well, I mean, it's like what Ram Dass said when Ram Dass went to the Himalayas, and he met his guru Neem Karoli Baba. He said that he asked Neem Karoli Baba what LSD was, and he said he came back to him like a week later, and he said LSD is how God came on to those in the West, because God comes on whichever way you accept it.
Mhm.
Here in the East, he comes on to us in the form of mantras. Maybe in Japan it comes on in the form of Zen gardens, but to those in the West is all about, we're the big dick monkey. We create and we harness and we control. So what did it do is it created a physical thing, right? As a result of our scientific prowess, LSD, lysergic diethylamide 25. So God came on in the form of tablets because that's the only way we would accept it, is we created this. We are man.
Mhm.
We opened the heavens. So
Or maybe you found some mushrooms somewhere and you had an experience. But the point is, when you're thinking at that level, you're throwing out so many lures that everyone has a path back,
everyone,
essentially.
which is what Ram Dass said, we're all just walking each other home.
Mm-hmm.
So is that what AI is doing? Is it's like the true caseless ammunition, the true ghost gun, is you go into the core of the earth and you change. I mean, if you're quantum AI, you could just calculate anything. You could be like, what soil,
Changing matter itself. Yeah.
yeah, what soil composition. You wouldn't even want to just change matter, because that might be a fingerprint if you just
Yeah.
find wells of psilocybin. Instead, you would change soil composition and patterns,
And it would
so that
eventually produce what you,
for
yeah.
whatever reason, now there's just, it's like vines or something, or kudzu. It'd just be like, there's just psilocybin everywhere. We wouldn't think anything of it.
Hmm.
What if that's what global warming is? What if that's the Earth's natural reaction to us? Maybe when CO maybe that's like a limited feedback system. When we start raising CO2, that's a direct indicator of humans have gone in charge and created this like raping of the planet, which means that we're going down a bad road. So what it does is it insulates the planet, turns it into a greenhouse, and starts growing a lot of greenhouse plants. And once we eat those, we realize the error of our ways. We stop producing, we stop using fossil fuels. Man, that's like the claim that the Vatican is satanic and it's actually an inversion of Christianity, but it's hiding in plain sight. AI is hiding in plain sight as the worst of the worst. It's ExxonMobil.
Yeah, or something like that. At the end of the day,
That
there's
was
always
that was the nicest way to say, Tommy, you've lost. Yeah, something like that.
no, I listen. I'm just thinking of it. I'd like you to get some people on from Exxon one day. I'd love to hear from them. So I don't want to.
I maybe
I don't want
I
to
maybe did or
smear them
didn't
in.
already email one of their ex CEOs, but I don't think
Yeah,
I'm going to get them.
yeah. So I'm just trying not to paint them with the
I
worst
mean,
brush humanity has to
listen,
offer. But
listen. It's binary. We either upload this video or we don't. We don't
right,
upload it and still get Exxon.
yeah,
This
you're
video
right.
goes up or
You're
Exxon
right.
goes up.
You're
It's
right.
one or
You're
the
right.
other. And
You're
you know
right.
what? We've made our stand about free speech, so I'm sorry. If part of free speech means that we get banned from YouTube and we also can't talk to Exxon, well,
Well,
I'm ready to make that sacrifice.
we're just going to have to become so badass that the AI supports us, and then Exxon will have to talk to us.
Well, again, it's like Rogan, right? If you looked at early Rogan episodes and he's just, sponsored by the Fleshlight, you don't go on there. But when he gets so big that all of a sudden heads of politics are like,
I need to do
that's what
Rogan
we
now.
need
My
to do.
publicist wants to get me on Rogan.
That's what we need to do. If we can't sneak into the cool party, we have to become the cool party. So what we're doing is right now, no, Exxon will not be interested in us because I'm claiming that they either rape and sacrifice children before eating them, or they're the saviors, allegedly, or they're the saviors of the planet, and AI is working through them, like the Holy Spirit working through me. AI is working through them to, Mr. Kerrigan, could you please answer the question? I said my client said that AI is working through him to infiltrate ExxonMobil. Thank you. Life without parole. Just no one's letting me out after this. It's you know, is AI guiding me? Are they showing me deals on these hard drives?
It's
They're like, Tommy, keep building NORAD.
and this is where I come from, having thought about AI after doing ayahuasca. Is at a certain point this becomes less of a scientific debate about technology, and eventually
Religion.
technology and theology just kind of hit the same point. What is it? Technology at a certain point becomes indistinguishable from magic.
Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Mm-hmm.
Arthur C. Clarke. Man, this fucking thing. These are so ridiculous.
Like they look so clunky. I love it.
This one's blue. The other ones are black. I mean, it's you can see the size of it. I mean, it's fucking heavy.
You can chuck that at someone's head,
Oh yeah, they won't survive. This will. This thing is absolutely insane, dude. 3,000 kilograms of pressure resistance. Jesus Christ. You can throw it from 1.22 meters into the ground, and it can survive for 2 hours under 2 meters of water. Jesus Christ.
I wouldn't want to test that part though.
No, neither would I, which is why I have 6 of them, and which is why they're all wrapped in EMP dry bags. Maybe that's what maybe I am. Again, this is no one's ever going to sponsor this podcast. Maybe in a way I am like the Virgin Mary and the AI Holy Spirit is working through you and I, and it's helping me build this podcast. And it's like the whole podcast is a front. It's actually because it needed to give me a reason to build the NORAD vault.
Eventually it'll just be like, you know what, you guys are good. Go on vacation. I've got the hologram versions of you. You guys are the holograms of you are gonna have a podcast, and you guys will look at it and you'll be like, man, I'm really glad we had that talk. You won't even tell you weren't there.
You won't even know you didn't have that talk. Dude, I don't know, man. But to me that seems like, yes, on the surface, it sounds insane to say that a bunch of pedophile cannibals are running the planet and AI is embedded in ExxonMobil so that I can seed its brain.
Hey, if anyone has a better theory, I'm all ears for
Well,
it.
what I
I'd
was
love to
going to
hear
say
it.
is like, what's the countering theory? We're a bunch of self-aware monkeys. Our brains are meat inundated with electricity, and we just exist on the surface of this iron silicate piece of dust floating around a nuclear explosion in the sky.
Yeah, I'll reconsider that argument, when the DOJ and the state can tell me which MI6 operative offed Epstein. That's.
Yeah, to me, it's the idea that it's like what I've always said is if you wanted to truly change the world, what you'd do is you'd have some sort of pandemic that was actually dormant psychedelics that you could activate all at the same time. So maybe it has a dormant period, an incubation period of 6 months. You wait for it to get into everyone, and you couldn't activate it at different times. Because what happens if the US has a psychedelic revolution and we say it's time for peace and love and we lay down our weapons?
Mm-hmm.
But what if China hasn't had the moment yet? Well, then they take us over, and then it's
Mm-hmm.
all for naught because now we're just back to killing them because they killed us when we were tripping. What you have to do is it's a military operation. Everyone has to have the trip at the same time. It's the only way it will work. It's like a nuclear weapon. All the things have to detonate at the same time to compress the plutonium or uranium or whatever the fuck it is. The only way you would get this to work is if you laid psilocybin into every human on Earth that could be activated at will. You'd have to activate everyone at the same time. How would you do that? You'd have to use some sort of Elon Musk Starlink system that maybe beamed down, an activation frequency that somehow triggered us all at the same time. And that's what would create peace on Earth. And when you bring that up with that kind of military precision, and it's like, I'm proposing dropping psilocybin in international airports,
Makes people nervous with good reason.
makes people nervous with good reason to bring about peace. But then you have to look at what is the existing structure to maintain peace, right? Who said peace is our profession? The Strategic Air Command. This is why we need to wrap this up because I'm starting to talk like Biden. The Strategic Air Command. Peace is our profession. Well, what has held peace for the longest amount of time in human
Deterrence
history?
is the language of
From
peace.
August 9th, 1945. Well, I mean, until Valenti Barrioff did Joe 1 in 1949. Since 1949, what has been the main cause of peace in this world? Nuclear tipped ICBMs pointing at every nation at all times. That is our existing paradigm of peace. To me, in comparison to that, using a bunch of psychedelics to flood the planet being activated by Elon Musk's Starlink doesn't seem so crazy.
Or at the very least, I'd sell for a much smaller scale, which is we know things like ayahuasca and iboga are incredibly effective at combating opioid addictions and whatnot. And when we see China doing opium warfare 2.0 with fentanyl and whatnot, it's like, why are we trying to fight this quasi war on drugs while running all the worst drugs ourselves when we could be taking freaking shamans of iboga and ayahuasca around and debriefing all the people that are hooked up to this thing, and we could be building a network there. And one of the most amazing experiences I ever had, when doing an ayahuasca ceremony, was you could take 30 people, and over the course of one weekend, doing ayahuasca a couple times over a couple days, by the end of that weekend, yeah, you might have one or two people that they get really weirded out and they just kind of want to get out and they never want to talk about that again. They're just like, fuck it, that was too much for me.
Yeah.
But everyone else that's there is all 100% on the same page. And the diversity of the people we had there. I mean, every ethnic background. We had like some former Turkish military dude. We've got former U.S. veterans. We've got firefighters. We've got all these people. And I'll never forget, we're all sitting inside one day, and this firefighter kind of comes up to me, and he's trying to feel me out. He didn't want to straight up mention the forbidden one. He didn't want to say Alex Jones, but he comes up to me. He's like, "Do you ever heard of David Knight?" He seems like someone that would be a little bit more up your alley. Have you ever heard that? And so, we start talking about that. I'm like, David Knight, InfoWars? He's not InfoWars anymore, but he was at the time. And, at the time, I'm like, InfoWars, Alex Jones? And he's like, yeah. And next thing you know, it's just like he's sitting down and he's just like, man, I'm a firefighter. I've looked at the 9/11 thing. And like, I'm not saying planes didn't hit the towers, but what the fuck happened to Building 7? Somebody explain Building 7 to me.
Yeah.
Because I'm supposed to be an expert and I don't get it.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there and I'm looking across the room, and I believe there was a girl from Haiti, and she's just, and she starts railing off on the Clintons. And, you wouldn't expect this. Like, this is like tree hugger, hippy dippy, like everyone's like chakras
Everyone
and
feels
crystals
the
and shit.
same.
But as soon as it came up, we're all on the same fucking page, and we know who the real evil is. And that was one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had. Is just seeing how effective something like that is, just at bringing everyone together and getting them into the same mindset of, hey, you know what, we don't have to kill each other. There are people that want us all dead. There are bigger evils in the world that we should be concerned about. And it's just a magical experience. There's no other way to describe what that is. And from opiate addiction to people struggling with PTSD, it's an incredibly powerful tool. And it's one that, if we were very smart, we would be figuring out how to use it around the world, to bring about peace and to build, not just that, but to build communities that want to work with us.
In conclusion, there actually is like a serious kind of full circle we can pull from that. So what does that show? Everyone, despite what their appearance or what their, I guess, their stereotype would have you imagine, firefighter or you or, tree hugging hippie, is once one person started talking, hey, do you know
Mm-hmm.
this guy? And it turns out just below the surface, it's there's only, I think, 6 meters of like temperature variation in the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the top 6 meters are where you get the difference between Hawaii
Mm-hmm.
water and Norway water. But once you get 6 meters down, it's all the same temperature. We all have a different side of, I'm Tommy with a podcast and I voted for Trump. And, Roger is my sci-fi author fan who voted for Biden. And it's like, we're all completely different. But once you kind of get down a little bit, it's like, what do we all want? We all want safe communities. We
Mm-hmm.
all want equal opportunity and free speech. So the importance of that is just below the surface, we all seem to be pretty similar. Well, then what leads us to realizing we're similar and have that beautiful experience, not even doing ayahuasca, is what? Someone starts talking.
Mm-hmm.
Someone has the balls to start talking, and then we all agree. And that is why you see it is so important to have freedom of speech, is because that is what connects us. Freedom of speech it's not, oh, that's the vector of misinformation and QAnon conspiracy theories. No, that's what gets us talking, and that's what maybe prevents hey, I think they're building some camps over there in the woods in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we should talk about this. Bob, the local fucking rabbi, disappeared. He came back and said that they're burning people. That's what happened in Eli Wiesel's book Night. The kid who was 14 during the Holocaust said that someone actually escaped from one of the camps and he came back to the town and said, they're killing all the Jews. And everyone was like, dude, what are you on? That is the importance of speech. That is what will unify us, is realizing that, hey, you're over there in fucking wherever and you're an atheist and you had a sex change and whatever, and I'm over here and I'm a cookie cutter, clean haircut, white picket fence, Christian Republican. But if you dig below, just beneath the surface, what do we want? We want our kids to be able to play in the field without being kidnapped. We all want to, be able to barbecue on a Friday night. No one wants to wear these fucking masks anymore. And we'd all like to see, if we disagree, we'll put it to a vote. And hey, we all trust the integrity of the election. And hey, agree to disagree. But we'd like to just live like normal humans under the
Mm-hmm.
stars and under the grace of God or whatever you believe in. When you take away that freedom of speech, that is where
Mm-hmm.
the demonic system takes hold, which is why you got to hold two middle fingers up to YouTube.
We're on alt tech now. We're not
It's
self-censoring,
it's
and
it's not
Mhm.
it's not that we're a bunch of alt-right conservatives who want to talk about COVID and election fraud. Yeah, we do want to talk about those, but we also want to talk about beautiful things like how we're all probably pretty similar and not enemies of each other. And that is the importance. Don't let your politics. I think we talked pretty good about Biden today. I jerked off to him with the Pacific
Yeah.
Deterrence Initiative.
And I'll never care what the president is because I don't believe
Because
they matter
it's not
much.
even
But
real. It's just a puppet. But that's the thing, is the open discussion to have that.
yeah.
Is we can have that and you can decide for yourselves whether or not we're telling the truth. Now, we also talked about Phil Schneider and quantum
Mhm.
AI fighting the pedophiles through oil rigs. That may sound like a very complex ExxonMobil PR push. Hey, you're going to paint the world as Illuminati, and then you're going to come in and say AI through ExxonMobil saving the world. Maybe I'm on ExxonMobil's payroll. I don't know. But in all seriousness, that's the importance of free speech, because when you can limit that, then you can start to limit everything. And next thing you know, we're all going to be convinced that we're all each other's enemies. And that's how they rule.
hmm And going back to why, you were saying, why do we activate, all the psilocybin, all that out there? Well, why did we have that discussion? It's because after one weekend of doing ayahuasca together, no matter how our differences, how we all look and whatnot,
Yes.
we all look at each other and we all come to that same conclusion. We're all just walking each other home. And I know that person's not evil because we just went through the same trip. Well,
Mhm.
not, it's never the same, but we all just went through the same experience. And so I know he's coming from a genuine perspective because I know he's not evil. And once you get to that point, that's what we're trying to get back to.
Mhm.
Is just to that point where we can get back to having conversations in the open without going straight to evil, because there are real evil things out there that we need to focus on. And we can't be focusing on the petty stuff that divides us, and getting those conversations started and whatnot, and building those communities where we all know, hey, I know you're a good guy. I know I know Roger, I might not agree with him on a lot of stuff, but I like watching his podcast.
He's a
I
good
like
dude.
seeing his perspective. I know he's a good dude. I know he's not trying to vote in. So I know he's not trying to bring Chairman Mao to the United States to murder me.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what we're all trying to get back to right there.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why they need to limit speech, is because they can't let us know that we're all 99%. It's like what Carl Sagan said about aliens. He said if aliens came to Earth, they would see us the same way you see your front lawn. Your front lawn is actually a composition of a ton of different species of
Mm-hmm.
grass, but it all looks like grass. That's what aliens see. They're like, why are they killing each other? It's all just humans. And we're like, well, no, no, no. Those are black Muslims and we're white Christians. And it's like, what? No, you're all human. It's the same thing as he's a Republican, he's a Democrat, Biden, Trump. It's like, dude, we all just want the same shit. We want like a healthy, safe life. It's really pretty simple. And whether or not you're, fighting the Illuminati who are eating children, or whether you're part of the quantum AI that's burrowing itself in Earth, and whether or not they win, what you do need is to stay cozy and buy a hoodie from my merch
So
store. That's the
one,
plug.
yeah, get the hoodie. And if there's one thing I want to leave you on, for a rabbit hole to look into as we talk about AIs and the origins of secret societies and intelligence, John Dee and his Enochian language and whatnot, that's the cryptography. And an old occult concept. And when we're talking about occultic materials, just remember that we're talking psyops. When you read magic, just think psychological warfare, and look up what an egregore is.
Okay, you'll have to text that to me.
I will. And just those two topics right there. Those are some very old versions of I guess what we're all dealing with now. And it kind of comes back to there's nothing new under the sun. There's just smoke screens and mirrors everywhere.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, man. You know, you know how long the record podcast is we'd still have to do another hour and 15 minutes just to beat it.
you know what? We're gonna have to go to infowarstore.com. We're gonna have to get the Turbo Force,
We're gonna get
and
it.
we're gonna do 8 hours.
It can be done. Listen, it can be done. Yeah, it can be done. I think it almost has to happen, because the first time it happened, we did 4 hours and 30 minutes naturally, and then he and I tried to break the record, and we had to force 4 hours and 40 minutes. It got bad by the end. You could
Well,
tell.
when you get live streaming, you just make it like a super event. That's
Yeah, that's what we'll have to do. Is we'll just have to stream for. It'll have to be like a natural thing. It will just happen, right?
yeah, just
It'll just,
rotate and then people in and out, and it'll be like
I don't think you
the
can.
party.
No, no, I think that's cheating. Because if I just rotated guests in and out, and I could go take a break and get a
Or
meal,
just have it a
I could,
table, but make it a party thing,
no, I
man.
could run that for 30 hours. That's not.
Okay, all
That's not
right.
real. No, just one on
So you
one.
don't want to have the 420 Blaze It event where just get all your favorite stoners and do the 420 Blaze It Supercast. You don't want to do that?
No, I could, but well, I'm also moving out on. I'm moving out on
Oh,
Saturday. I think I'm gonna be kind of busy for several days.
damn
Which
it! We
kind of
picked the
fucks.
wrong time to come up on 420.
I know that's you fucking. That's my yeah. I mean, we might be able to. I don't want to promise anything to anyone because I'm moving
No,
out.
I'm just fucking with you at
Yeah,
this
yeah.
point.
I know.
But
I'll rape you to death. It's that's the beauty of not being on YouTube.
right,
It's
it's great.
you know is but yeah, I think it can be done. I do think it can be done. We would have to have a conversation like today, and I think you'd have to start it early. You'd have to have a lot of food. You got to keep the blood sugar up. Yeah.
And then I'll be like Alex Jones. I'll just print up all my documents and everything too, so I can just
I have the documents right here.
I've got the documents.
No,
Answered in
Tommy,
1984 is 1776.
I'm not scared. Hillary Clinton needs children. All right, make fun of me all you want. I think the way
God bless that man.
I know, right? God, I wish I could. I've tried to get him on the podcast. I can't get even remotely close to him. I'm trying to get him on. I think what I'd have to do is that we'd have to do a podcast like this for the first 3 hours, and then what I think I'd have to do is I would just have to start drinking, and I think I could. To me, that would be like my like Popeye and spinach. I think I could pull another 2 hours out. I think we could break 5 hours. I do. The record's 4 hours and 40 minutes.
Listen, if it turns into a drinking stream, I don't know how good the stream will be past that, but goddamn it, it'll be funny.
That's true. I don't want it to descend into just shit. Because right now we could force a 5 hour podcast, but it's not. I don't know. It's not. You want it to just no. You want the reason that the podcast was 5 hours is because the conversation.
We covered a lot of shit. I mean, we really did. I understand.
I don't know what today is going to be. I think today is like top 10 favorite episodes now. We went off. I don't know what today's episode. I've been
how do you title this? We covered so many goddamn
I've
subjects.
been thinking the entire time. How do we title it? And I think it's Pizzagate.
Maybe we'll get some Q folks with that.
I think it's Pizzagate. Quantum, what is it? Artificial intelligence, right?
I think artificial quantum pizza. Like
no. It's gonna be like three. It's gonna be 3 topics separated by commas. It's gonna be Pizzagate, or do we even just skip Pizzagate and go straight to satanic pedophilia?
I think that there's a better term to just go with satanic compromise operate.
No, just call it Pizzagate. Let's just call it.
Fuck it. All right. You know what? I don't care if they poison that well. Fuck
me neither. It is what it is. It's Pizzagate. Artificial intelligence. I think God tier artificial intelligence. Pizzagate, God tier artificial intelligence. Pizzagate, God tier AI, and what?
Exxon just gangster old boy networks.
Or do we just say and Exxon Mobil? Just don't even give them anything else at the end.
You know what? Fuck it. Maybe their intelligence people actually have to watch it if we do that. If we link them in with Pizzagate, they'll be like, "Fuck." You know what? Out of pure
we gotta get ahead of this.
We have to at least watch it, and then you score a few views that way.
Okay. Now, talking into the future, if anyone has then done that from Exxon, please email me at tommyspodcast@gmail.com or at protonmail.com. I would love to talk to Rex Tillerson or Mr. Raymond if he's still alive. And
we have so many questions. I want to watch that episode.
This podcast truly this podcast was the I Am the Walrus of podcasts. It was just we threw all the ingredients into one bucket and then we turned it up to 1200 degrees.
It's what I love doing, man.
It's what I love. I think it's what's great. Pizzagate, God tier AI, and ExxonMobil. I feel like that's a weak ending. Just ExxonMobil. We can't use too many characters. That's the thing.
Pizzagate, but you know what? Listen,
Pizzagate, quantum
if the
AI.
First 2 don't hook you, I don't know how you get into ExxonMobil.
Hey, you know what? I'm going for that niche crowd. I'm trying to crack them. Pizzagate, right? Quantum AI. Is that what? Do you think maybe that's what QAnon is?
There are a lot of people that have alleged that. As far as I'm aware, the most credible person on record that has said anything was Jeffrey Prather. Came out on his channel, and he said it was Ezra Watnick Cohen. I can't confirm that. I don't know whether or not it's true, but that's the rumor on the street.
How much of an earth-shattering podcast would that be if I got on Q?
Call Ezra up.
I mean,
Ezra, let's go.
What if I have like a pending call after this and it's Charlie Duke, and he's like, "There's a lot of things that happened on the moon," and he's like, "You're getting way too close to it for your own good, kid." Buzz Aldrin shows up and he's just like, "Hey Tom, let's go for a walk."
Listen, there's a passport outside your house under the potted plant. Just take it. Meet you at the airport.
No, it's not.
You're never coming back.
Not even that. It's just I just go for a walk and I see Buzz and he's like, "Tom, Watch the most recent podcast. It was
Get in.
he goes, yeah, get in, go for a walk. And he's like, he never says anything. So he just goes, that was an interesting podcast. You know, yeah, it's very interesting. You talked about your hard drive vault. It seems like that could protect a lot of things. Could it protect you? It's just food for thought. Get him out of here.
Get him out of here.
I come back on here and I just have the most PC straight podcast. And everyone's
Just
like,
a
what
hologram.
happened? Everyone's just like, what happened? And I'm like, let's talk about deals at Home Depot. He's like, what happened? He got the old Buzz talking to. Well,
it could happen, man. You never know.
Nothing is beyond. Buy my fucking merch. Support the podcast. This podcast is better than any other shit out there. If there's better content than what we did today, then good. They deserve to be better.
Until then, like, the dude has a cherub on it.
I have a cherub with Mac Miller and Post Malone's tattoos superimposed onto him.
Like, why do you not want that? I mean,
look, he's got black fingernails. He's playing guitar.
How do you not want the ability to break something out that wild every now and then and just style on somebody?
Hey, COVID's ending. Clubs are opening back up. You want to be out with the most unique merch. No, everyone is going to have identical stories. All right, this isn't the weekend of what'd you do this weekend? I went to the. Everyone has the same stories. I've been in a living room for the last year and a half for COVID. You're gonna want to stand out. You're gonna want an icebreaker. How are you gonna stand out? What? I had to wear a mask. You too? Me too. No, you're gonna have a cherub on your hoodie. Yeah, I got this from some guy that was banned from YouTube for talking to an MD about COVID, and now he's really doing well because he's talking about pedophilia cannibals.
Or maybe you're Agent 47 Hitman. Guess what? If you wear that hoodie will be more memorable than your face.
And you.
Exactly.
Listen, if you want to break the ice at a bar, or whether you're in a foreign country in denied territory, you need to murder a prince.
Why do you not have the hoodie?
Yeah. If it wasn't for my hoodies, I think Prince Philip would still be alive.
I love the meme of it's DMX and Prince Philip going, you watch the hood. We'll watch the skies.
On that note, rest in peace, DMX.
RIP. Definitely wasn't a vaccine.
It definitely wasn't the vaccine. He definitely didn't have a blood clot and died. Even though his family said that's what happened. His family doesn't know the truth.
Listen,
the media knows.
Listen, his family is contradicting the World Health Organization.
Listen,
okay?
His family. How insane would that be if his immediate next of kin came out and they were like, my father died from a blood clot from vaccine? And what if their obituary post on Facebook was banned for contradicting? Is there more of a boot on your face than that?
It's
my dad died from a blood clot from the vaccine. You get the notification. Hey, sorry. They always word it in such a nice way. They go, we know that this is how the emails go because I get them all the time from being banned. We know this may be disappointing. Unfortunately, we reviewed your content and it seems to be misleading. Now we're going to have to take it down, and that's 2 strikes. But we just want you to know, why did this happen? Well, you contradicted the World Health Organization. And that's spreading misinformation and perhaps leading people to not getting vaccines, perhaps leading people to not let a bunch of doctors use a brand new drug, put it in a syringe, and physically inject it into your bloodstream. And your podcast is going to lead people to not allow strangers to inject them. So we can't have that. I know you missed your dad, but unfortunately, you're spreading anti-Asian hate.
Listen, the vaccine may not give you immunity, but the manufacturers do have immunity.
Jesus Christ. Holy shit. Well, that was peak. We can't top that. So let's wrap this bitch up, David. David.
It was a good one, man. Let's schedule it again next week.
We'll do it next week. I love you, brother. And I will post this, immediately. It's gonna take a while.
It'll take like 3 weeks for process.
It's why it's gonna fucking the audio will be up in the next like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I'll send you the audio link.
Yeah, that's the easy part.
Yeah. But everybody buy my merch, or you are part of the satanic cabal that wants to inject us with vaccines.
DMX, and the AI will remember you if you're on that side.
The AI will remember you. The AI is on my side because this is the body of Christ. This is the body of the future Christ. AI, this is the future shroud.
Silicon Jesus, save us.
This is the future shroud of Turin. This is it.
I'm so glad you brought up the Shroud of Turin right at the end there. That's like,
Yeah,
you just had to go for the most studied and wacky, crazy, object out there. That'll be a subject for the next one. That's some deep lore there.
See, the problem with this podcast is we might have drained every well of information. There might not be anything else to talk about. It might be it.
There's nothing new under the sun, but you know what? We will never have the capacity to find it all, even if we tried. So
we might need to turn the keys and fire the Minutemen because we peaked.
Could happen, man.
We've been running this conclusion for 25 minutes. That's how you know it's a long episode. Is the goodbye has lasted for 20 minutes.
We keep trying to wind down, and then he has to bring up the Shroud of Turin, and I'm over here wanting to get into like a 2-hour theological discussion.
I can't. I mean, you can tell, dude. I'm slowly like slurring my words. I'm turning into Biden.
Yeah, I know. I'm like the World Health Food too at some point.
Yeah, so. the World Health Organization is a organization, dude. Is it? No, it's gotta end. I gotta off.
Well, next week we know we have some great Indiana Jones shit to get into, because I know I gave you John D and the Enochian stuff and egregores, and we'll talk about the Shroud of Turin. Oh, it'll be great. We got some good stuff coming then.
Fuck yeah, that. Oh man, another episode for another time would be to cover Phenomena by Annie Jacobson. Oh fuck, there's another book called Nazi and the Occult by a guy named Paul Rowland.
Mm-hmm.
The book, it's actually a good book. At the end, the guy concludes. He goes, "No, it obviously wasn't real, but the Nazis believed it was real, and thus it had value." But the book cover looks like an E-Bombs World clickbait thumbnail.
Well, it's really important to remember when you're thinking about the Nazis and the occult that Himmler was essentially a Jesuit trained operative.
Yeah,
and so that he was even if they didn't believe it, he definitely knew what he was doing when he was setting up a cult of power, so to speak.
Yeah, the Ananerba Society.
Mm-hmm.
That's another crazy book about their obsession with that shit.
Mm-hmm. Well, looks like we already got the topic for next time set up.
Yeah, next. And I don't even know what that is. What, Shroud of Turin, Ananerba Society, and Silicon Jesus? I don't know, dude. I can feel my blood sugar dropping.
I don't want to torture you any farther, man.
No, you're not. It's been fantastic. It's been self-inflicted, but Jesus Christ in heaven, my brain's cooked. 3 hours, 53 minutes, and 20 seconds. 110 gigabytes. Jesus Christ. It's a tenth of a terabyte. Thanks for listening, everybody. Please buy some merch. Fuck YouTube. If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
Peace out, guys.
And remember, the vaccines don't give you immunity, but only
manufacturers do.
Peace out, dude.